Welcome you to the Lakeville Area School Board meeting this February 24th. If everyone would stand as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's start with roll call on my right.
Tony Reichenberger.
Matt Swanson.
Carly Anderson.
Amber Cameron.
Michael Bauman.
Kim Baker.
Brian Thompson.
And cabinet members or guests, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sandy Georgie, Director of Teaching and Learning.
Amy Gishmeyer, American Indian Education Coordinator.
Nicole Adams, Director of Integrated Continuous Improvement.
Kelly McDermott, Principal at Kenwood Tripp.
Jason Bakke, Principal at Century Middle School.
Joshua Alexander, Principal at McGuire Middle School.
And over here?
Bill Lungan, Executive Director of Business Services.
Tracy Rohold, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning.
Emily McDonald, Assistant Superintendent.
Lucas Yo, Executive Director of Operations.
Michelle Humphrey, Executive Director of Student Services.
Great, thanks everybody. I'd like to turn it over now to Superintendent Bauman for good news.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. So good news on February 24th. This is a long one, so sit back, and then at the end you're going to get a good entertainment, I think. Lakeville Area Schools is proud to announce that Hillary Morlock, who is the Digital Media Specialist at Cherryview Elementary and the District Digital Media Specialist Lead, has been named a semifinalist for the 2026 Minnesota Teacher of the Year Award. She is one of 30 semifinalists from across the state. The winner will be announced later this spring. We wish the best of luck to Miss Morlock. Last week, we celebrated Schmidt & Sons Bus Company School Bus Driver Appreciation Week in Lakeville Area Schools. We celebrate and thank our school bus drivers for the vital role they play in supporting our students and families each day. By providing safe, reliable transportation and a welcoming start and end to the school day, they help ensure students arrive ready to learn. We are grateful for their care, patience, and dedication, and for the meaningful impact they have across our district. Thank you for all you do for our students and families. A little round of applause for our bus drivers. Congratulations to the Lakeville North High School girls hockey team. An incredible season for all our student athletes on that hockey team. The Panther girls hockey team took first place at their section tournament on February 11th and made it to quarterfinals at the 2026 State Class AA girls hockey tournament on February 19th at Grand Casino Arena. Congratulations to all involved with Lakeville North girls hockey. Also, congratulations to the Lakeville North dance team on turning heads and making it to finals in both the jazz and high kick state competitions at Target Center, February 13th and 14th. The Lakeville South dance team also competed in both jazz and high kick at the state tournament. Way to represent Panthers and Cougars. There's more. 11 Lakeville student athletes represented our community with pride at the 2026 Boys and Girls State Ski Tournaments, February 10th through the 12th. Lakeville North 10th grader Cole Peltz earned third place out of 88 competitors in alpine skiing. Way to go, Cole. And Lakeville South senior Faye Brown earned 12th overall out of 110 competitors in the Nordic Pursuit event. Congratulations, Faye. Last month, our Kenwood Trail Middle School band students were selected to perform with the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire Middle School Honor Bands. More than 600 students were nominated to participate in the honor bands, with just 250 selected. Congratulations to 8th graders Benjamin Biggs and Zach Twig, and 7th graders Adelaide Nielsen, and Luke Zhang for making our school at Kenwood Trails proud of your performance. Last month, 52 Lakeville Youth and Government delegates attended the 2026 YMCA Youth and Government Conference, where they argued cases, presented legislation, and stepped into leadership roles across Minnesota's model state government. Highlights include 11th grade students Scarlett Wilkerson and Izzy Zamponga, selected for the Supreme Court Showcase Round, an honor reserved for top performing cases. 10th grade student Beckett Zweber's proposal passing General Assembly in the National Issues Forum, which is the highest level of achievement within that program area. And 11th grade student Anna Bash, elected as Lobbyist Executive Director, and 6 other Lakeville students selected as appointed officials. So congratulations to all of our students who participated in Lakeville Youth and Government. Then congratulations to the Lakeville North High School Theater on earning multiple Hennepin Theater Trust Spotlight Education Awards for their production of Anything Goes. Honors include Outstanding Performance in a Leading Role, earned by 12th grade student Maisie Moe. Outstanding Performance in a Supporting Role, earned by 12th grade student Miro Leo. Outstanding in a Technical Leadership position, earned by 12th grade students Lexi Ziziorsky and Jackie Ewert. And then Outstanding Ensemble Dance Performance and Overall Technical Performance. And several other honorable mentions and evaluator shout-outs. Congratulations to all of our Lakeville North High School Theater participants. Then congratulations to Sienna Warren, a 4th grader at Orchard Lake Elementary, who earned 2nd place in the 2026 South of the River Powwow Art Contest. As one of the top 3 artists, Sienna will be honored during the 2026 South of the River Powwow on May 2nd. Congratulations, Sienna. All right, now, drum roll. We do have from our Kenwood Trails Middle School our kazoo band, and they are here to perform this evening, and I'll hand it off to the director.
All right, this is our kazoo band. We are students in grades 6 through 8. I think we are Lakeville's first kazoo band. So we're making history. We meet here in wintertime, which is a time when students can get extra help, or we have enrichment activities, and this is one of our enrichments. This supports our engagement piece of our RISE standards for the school. So we're going to play 2 pieces for you tonight. Our first one is Star Wars by John Williams, celebrating his 94th birthday about 2 weeks ago. And then we'll play Lean on Me, and we're going to encourage you all to join us in singing the final chorus of Lean on Me tonight. Here's Star Wars.
That was awesome. Thank you all. I know. Now it's like we have to do business now, which is not nearly as fun. So thank you for coming, everyone.
I got one
Appreciate
more.
that. Oh yeah, I'm going to turn it back over to Superintendent Bauman.
All right. Kenwood Trails Kazoo Band, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for parents for bringing those kids over here. We appreciate it. March 9th through the 13th, we'll be celebrating District Office Staff Appreciation Week in Lakeville area schools, and we're proud to recognize the many dedicated professionals who support students, staff, and families across the district each day. Through their expertise in teaching and learning, operations, financial management, student services, nutrition, facilities, and much, much more, they provide critical support behind the scenes and play an essential role in helping us fulfill our mission of preparing every student for academic, social, civic, and personal success. So thank you for all you do. Read more about the amazing things happening in our district at isd194.org/news. And that, Madam Chair, concludes our good news for this meeting.
Great. Thank you, Superintendent Bauman. Next on our agenda is board communications. I think the main thing to highlight from the board is that, and hopefully you've heard about this already in the community, is we have approved a vote on May 12th to secure more space at our middle schools. And so there will be a bond vote on May 12th. If you are interested in learning more about the bond and what it supports, there's many community meetings. There is one prior to this board meeting, but there'll be many opportunities for you to connect with the school district to learn more about that and what that bond entails, to see if and to get you out to vote on May 12th about the bond. If you know of a community group that wants to learn more about the bond or what it entails, please reach out to any of the board members up here, and we'd be happy to come share information about the bond with our community. So with that, I would like to move to approve the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
First by Director Swanson, second by Baker. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Everyone voted? Okay. Motion passes. With that, we'll move to public comment. Today, there are two people, so both registered people will be able to speak. Before we begin, I'd just like to lay out the ground rules again in case you have not participated in public comment before. So the board at each formal board meeting opens the floor for 30 minutes to allow the public to address the board with comments and concerns. To participate in public comment, individuals must have registered in advance using the form provided on the website by noon on the Monday before the scheduled public comment session. There will be no board response during the session. Public comments framed as complaints and/or concerns about students and or staff are not appropriate in a public forum due to data privacy laws. These comments should be addressed to the administration outside of a public meeting. Likewise, complaints about school board members should be privately directed to the board chair and or superintendent. No formal action will be taken on a topic presented during public comment. As necessary, the administration will follow up with the appropriate personnel on any concerns that need to be individually addressed. Also, if necessary, the board will follow up during board communications at the next regularly scheduled board meeting. Individual remarks are limited to 3 minutes. The board will provide a signal when the participant has 30 seconds remaining of their time. Please try to keep audience noise to a minimum to allow everyone the opportunity to speak uninterrupted. And with that, I'll draw the first name. First name is Dan Stephenson. Stevenson? Oh, sorry, Stevenson, sorry. Come on up.
I'm a little disappointed. I thought the whole kazoo team and those people were all here to support me, but then they left, so yeah, definitely a hard act to follow. Like I said, I'm new to this. My name's Dan Stevenson, and I represent the Lakeville South Senior High School Senior Committee Party, and I guess I'm here to just, talk to you guys about what challenges I've had leading up to this. I've been doing it for, this will be my 5th year. And it's just been a lot of friction dealing with the community education department over the years. And never being felt like we were part of the community or given, any grace on how to get our stuff done efficiently, and it felt like a lot of roadblocks were put in our place. This year has been especially challenging with graduation ceremonies being brought back to the high school, so that involves some logistic challenges, and I voiced some of my concerns and was met mostly with, instead of sort of a productive meeting or a, we want to work with you to figure out how we can succeed in keeping this long-standing tradition, I was kind of just met with, nope, sorry, logistically, staff-wise, can't happen, won't happen, refuse to even acknowledge that it's a problem for anybody on, the other side of me and the senior class. I had some meetings and was very frustrated, I guess, with them, reached out to a few of the board members and Superintendent Bauman. Finally got a meeting with him, went very well. We felt like we were heard, and I was convinced that a possible alternative, which we'd been asking about the opportunity, would be at a different location, which McGuire Middle School. Just through a series of emails was just never said whether that could work or why it wouldn't work. I think that's in the works. I was hoping when Superintendent Bauman was talking about the good news that he was going to say, yes, we've made a decision and it's going to be fine, you guys can go there. I didn't hear that. We're still waiting. So yeah, that is some of my frustration has just been, even just this year, part of it is just the lack of response. It's now been about a month and we haven't heard back. It started out that the 4th was not an option, and then I said, well, all right, I guess we could maybe do the 5th, and then time went by and it was like, nope, not the 5th either. Okay, how about the 6th? Nope, that won't work, and never a real why it couldn't, or what if we did this, so that's what I'm here just to say. Please work with us, and I think maybe we do have a olive branch out, and hopefully things will work out. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dan. All right, and our last speaker is Libby Huddle. Did I say that correctly? Okay.
All right, good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Bauman, members of the cabinet. I'm Libby Huddle. I'm here as a parent of a senior, a community member, and I'm also an administrator in another district who works closely with community education and facilities in my normal day-to-day job. So I would like to speak about the growing frustrations between facilities, specifically surrounding the Lakeville South Senior Party, and how that process aligns with this district's mission and core values. Lakeville's mission begins with together with our families and community. And the Senior Party reflects that mission. It is a long-standing, safe, supervised event designed to support students on graduation night. This year, graduation is going to be held at the Lakeville South football field, which I think personally is going to be great, instead of the University of Minnesota. But the Senior Party takes place indoors. And currently, the rain plan is to move the date of graduation, not to move it inside. If the ceremony were to be moved inside, senior parents have been very clear that they are more than willing to help with indoor graduation setup, whether that means assisting with chairs, resetting spaces, adjusting timelines. We're asking for accommodations that offer partnership with the district. What has been challenging is how this decision was made and how collaboration occurs between facilities and the high school administration when there's this long-standing student tradition involved. The district's core values include students first, collaboration, integrity, and responsible stewardship. And when communication feels unclear or collaboration is not visible, it feels misaligned with the values of this district. More broadly, I've heard from several community members who have also described frustrations when dealing with the facilities process and find it difficult to navigate. In my own district, we emphasize accessibility and responsiveness when it comes to community education, and when families feel heard, they come back. When Lakeville groups start renting spaces in neighboring districts, that's something that should cause some pause, not as criticism, but to reflect and as feedback to the district. When families choose to go elsewhere, it's rarely about the building itself, it's about their experience. Community education has the potential to be one of the strongest expressions of this district mission, the bridge between schools and and the families in this community in these shared spaces with a shared purpose. The senior party is a simple but powerful example of that opportunity. It's about student safety, it is about tradition, and it's about partnership between families and schools. If we can find a way to align around something as clear and student-centered as this, that sends a strong message about who we are and what we prioritize at as a school community. Nothing should be pushed aside that prioritizes student safety on one of the highest risk nights of their lives.
It's time.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for your service to the community.
Thank you. Thank you, Libby. That concludes our public comment section of the agenda. Next, we'll move to consideration of the approval of the consent agenda. Bear with me, it's long, and we can go over why as I read through the elements of this. So the consent agenda includes our board minutes from our February 5th and our February 10th meetings, employment recommendations, leave requests and resignations, payment of bills and claims, wire transfers and investments, the resolution regarding acceptance of gift donations, extended field trips, and the ELA core resource recommendation for grades 9 through 12. In addition, there are a number of policies under the consent agenda. The first three, Policy 502, search of student lockers, Policy 526, hazing prohibition, and Policy 533, wellness, have been discussed twice at school board meetings. And as a reminder to everyone, at our last work session with the school board, we discussed kind of the MSB policy update and the goals of our school board and trying to update our policies. And I believe everyone is in consensus. I know you were absent, Director Thompson, but the consensus from the rest of the board was that when there's minor changes, we'd like the district to bring forward recommendations to the board for consideration from Director Brenda Albrecht. So the rest of the policies that you see here, Policy 701.1, modification of school district budget, Policy 705, investments, Policy 706, acceptance of gifts, Policy 708, transportation of non-public school students, Policy 902, use of school district facilities and equipment, and Policy 904, distribution of materials on school district property by non-school persons. These are all considered minor edits from the MSBA policy audits. Mainly, the things that changed in all of these were related to changing the name of the school board, so moving it from Board of Education to School Board, and adding state statutes and legal references and cross-references. So it's important that our policies have cross-references because we don't cite everything in every policy, but they do relate to one another. And so we want to make sure that that's explicit both for the board and for the school district on how those things are related. So Director Albrecht brought forward all of the minor edit recommendations from MSBA in the 700 and 900 series for approval of the school board. So with that, are there any items from the consent agenda that a board member would like to remove? Yeah, Director Thompson.
I'd like to remove letter F, letter G, letter H, letter J, and letter O, please.
Okay, will you go through that one more time? Letter F?
Yep, letter F, letter G, letter H, letter J, and letter O, please.
Okay, let me just, can I repeat it back to make sure I got it? Letter F, letter G, letter H, letter J, letter O. Yes. Okay. Any other items that people would like to remove? Yeah, Director Swanson?
I just want a clarification. 705, 706, and 904 all have notes still remaining in those. Will those be removed?
Yes, those would be removed. So those are not stricken yet, but the notes would be removed, correct, Director Albrecht? Okay. Any other?
That's all I have.
Okay. Any other items to remove? Okay, and Director Thompson, do you imagine having robust discussion on these, or are these clarifying questions?
I've got questions around them. I've got, I'm assuming robust discussions. I did get a chance to listen to the board meeting last week or 2 weeks ago, and you guys talked about some of these policies. And for example, I think policy 526 and policy 533, the discussion that you guys had was around getting parental consent before something happened. But if you listen to the board meeting prior to that, it was more of giving parental awareness that it did happen. So that is what I think is super important that, that we can discuss when we get to that particular topic.
Okay, great. So with that, we'll remove F, G, H, J, and O. We will see how the board member progresses. If we're not going to be here till midnight, and so in the event our meeting is going long, I may make a motion to table these to the next meeting, but we can see how our timing is for the meeting. So with that, I'd like to seek a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes letters A, B, C, D, E, I, K, L, M, and N.
So moved.
First by Director Anderson, second by Director Reichenberger. Any further discussion? Okay. Oh, Director Thompson?
Yeah, I just have one discussion, and I don't think it's appropriate in the policy 706 category, but acceptance of gifts. I know that we've had previous discussions with naming rights of buildings, and it's not really a gift, but they're paying for something in that respect. So I just wanted to make sure that I tee that up for a future discussion, because we ran into that scenario a year and a half ago. And how much do we charge? Do we not charge anything? What is the calculus around what's appropriate and what's not? And then what is the rule around having a person or a name established? So again, there may be scenarios where someone may gift us a really big building. I don't know, but what does that look like? So thank you.
Okay, great. Any other conversation? All right, I'd like to, or all in favor of the consent agenda as presented?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 6 of us today, right? 6-0. All right, with that, let's move to district reports and discussion. So I'd like to invite up Amy.
Madam Chair,
Oh,
just
yeah.
point of order. So are we skipping over the consent agenda discussion items?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I think we should put these after we get through our normal business today. In the event that, as I mentioned earlier, we would need incredible time to fulfill all these. So my recommendation would be to put these under after number 6, and we would go in the order as they're listed. So F, G, H, J, O. Is that all right? Yep, Director Baker.
I just want to ask a clarifying question about this. When we discussed this at the last meeting, we were putting through the policies on the consent agenda because we were trying to get through them since we were behind on our three-year cadence. This doesn't seem to be fitting with what we agreed to as a board. So what exactly, for review of those of us at the table, would be the process if a board member has questions about a policy that ends up on the consent agenda? Because this is what we were trying to avoid by doing this.
I think we can discuss that when we get to the items. I do recognize that any board member has the right to make a recommendation to pull an agenda item, but yes, I do think it conflicts with where the consensus of the board was last time. So are you comfortable with that, Director Swanson, putting it after?
We just do a motion to postpone it till later in the meeting?
Yeah, so how I consider consent agenda items based on Robert's rules is that the discussion of consent agenda items is if there's clarifying questions before it's approved, but then if there's substantial questions, that those get put in the agenda based on kind of the order of urgency for those items.
Point of order?
Yep.
We've approved the agenda and as it is right now. So if we'd have to revise the order of the agenda, we would need a vote to do that.
Okay. Then we can go in order with these right now and start with F. And yeah.
Revise.
Okay. Okay, Director Thompson.
I'll make a motion to move all the consent agenda items that were pulled to after letter 8. I'm sorry, number 8.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, first by Director Thompson, second by Director Swanson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so after letter 8,
Forward, Amy, just
we're
go
adding
forward.
F, G, H, J, and O.
That way.
Okay. All right, thank you for that, everyone. All right, with that, I'd like to invite American Indian Education Coordinator, Amy Gershmeyer, to the podium, along with community member and parent on the advisory, Steve Jacobson, to present the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee vote of, Johnson. Sorry, I work with Steve Jacobson. I'm sorry. Steve Johnson. To present the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee vote of concurrence. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chair Cameron, members of the board, and Superintendent Bauman. I'm Amy Gishmeyer, the American Indian Education Coordinator for Lakeville Area Schools. So, Buju Anin, Amy Indigenakaz, Ajijak, Nindunjaba, Nadawash, Minnesota, Anishinaabe. I am doing my best, so please bear with me. I am trying to learn my language of Ojibwe, so I said, hello, my name is Amy. I am from Nadawash, Minnesota, and I'm Crane Clan, and I'm an Anishinaabe woman. So my role is to support our Indigenous students, families, and provide guidance and resources to staff supporting our Native students. As a district of more than 180 American Indian students, we are required by state statutes to fulfill specific tasks and implement, to the best of our ability, culturally relevant opportunities and encourage greater understanding of the needs of our students and families. Guided by the American Indian Parent Advisory Council, my work is focused on improving outcomes for our Native American students in ISD 194. As required, part of the annual compliance of these initiatives, our AIPAC meets to discuss 6 areas of focus detailed in our plan to ensure programs are being implemented, and they vote whether they agree or disagree with the level of incorporation. So please welcome Steve Johnson, a member of our AIPAC, to read the resolution for this year.
Thank you, Chair Cameron, members of the board, and Superintendent Bauman. I'm Steve Johnson. I'm a member of the AIPAC. I'm representing all members, students, and families to present the American Indian Parent Advisory Council resolution. Whereas on the 24th day of January 2026, we, the Lakeville Area Schools AIPAC, issued a vote of concurrence. No further action is required beyond the board chair's signature, which completes the annual compliance process. The compliance documents will be submitted to the state before the March 1st deadline. This concludes the American Indian resolution for the 25-26 school year. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
Questions?
Dr. Thompson?
Yeah, so I've got 2 questions. I don't know if this is the appropriate forum to discuss them, so we can table it if need be. I recall maybe last year or 2 years ago, we had challenges identifying individuals, and we wanted to put some sort of robust mechanism in place because I think the state of Minnesota had different designation, we had different designation, we didn't know how to capture that, and that would have resulted in a higher count, but additional funding that we could then leverage to make the program larger. And then the second question that I had was, last year, there were 6 areas of focus that you guys did. How did you progress? Did you make any progress? And then the new ones that you've got going on for this coming year, can you give us an example, or is that for another discussion? So those are the 2 questions I have.
Probably for another discussion.
Okay, that's fine. We can bring that to another meeting.
Sure.
Or,
Good.
Thank you.
unless, Amy, do you want to address it right now? You're welcome to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. On the fly. So as far as identifying our students, I think we've got a really good handle on that. I've been partnering a lot more and getting a lot more information through those that are enrolling that might be new to our district. So I do have that in place for that. And as far as how we're doing achieving with the goals for this year, one major thing that was written into the plan was to add an additional team member which I am very happy to say we have Maya Contreras, who joined us right before the winter break. And she's been in every one of the schools already. I think she gave me a tally of, she's already met over half of our Native students in all the schools. She actually interviewed our Sienna Warren, who was our art contest winner. There were actually about 25 art pieces, and it's K-12, so it's not by grade. So it was a huge honor for her as a fourth grader to actually get second place. So we're really proud of her for that. And we've been incorporating a lot more. As you heard, I was trying to use my Ojibwe language, and so that's something that we are working to incorporate in for all of our students. And then Maya is also Lakota, so she is bringing in also the Lakota language, which is actually part of state statute that we need to do that with as a district of over 100 Native American students. So does that give you some?
Right, Director Thompson?
I appreciate that context, and it probably sounds like we probably should have another meeting. I mean, when I just think through 180 students, how much funding are we getting? Do you have enough funding? What are the things that you plan on doing this year? What are the objectives that you want to accomplish, and how can the board support you along the way? But probably for
We can have
another
further
day.
discussion on that
Yeah.
at a later meeting if you'd like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd like to be prepared.
Any other questions or comments from members? I'd just like to say thank you, and thank you for Mr. Johnson, there we go, your service on this committee. It's great to see parental involvement, and thank you, Ms. Gershmeyer, for all you do for the district too. So thank you. All right, and with that, we will move to State of the Schools from our middle school team. We have with us tonight Principal from McGuire Middle School, Dr. Joshua Alexander, Principal from Century Middle School, Jason Bakke, and Principal at Kenwood Middle School, Kelly McDermott. So thank you all for being here tonight.
We go by height, so I'm the shortest. So thank you for having us here tonight, Madam Chair, board members. We are here to talk about middle school and kind of the state of middle school. We're going to kind of break it up into a little bit about a little history lesson to start, because we were here 4 years ago when we first came back to middle school. We had a lot of good conversation about that. We've moved forward into our programming. We're going to talk about what the day in the life looks like for a 6th, 7th, and 8th grader. And we've also got some video of that for our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students, and then also some of the supports that we offer to our kids. So but I get to kind of kick us off here. Ms. McDermott will go next, and then Mr. Bakke will kind of finish us off here. So for that, do we have a clicker? Are we the clicker? Are you the clicker? You are the clicker. There we go. So we are 3 buildings. We are 3 cats, but we really try hard to make sure that we do things very similar across all 3 middle schools. When it comes to programming, when it comes to support, how we do things with our kids, very systematically is how we try to do things. And this was embedded about 4 years ago as we started to look at what middle school is. And with that, we came to you guys 4 years ago and we said we really want to put forward that middle school model, getting it back. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade kiddos, working hard to work on their academic side, their core balance and their core beliefs, and getting them not just from elementary to high school, but having a nurturing side in their academics happen all the way through. And so with that, we really focus in, and we thought we should start with what is a middle school. And it's different than a junior high. Most of us probably went to a junior high school, which is a smaller high school, where you're all over the place, you don't have those adults who are really cored in on you. But with that, our teachers work on teams. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. But we really hit those core courses through the day. We're going to talk about English language arts, math, science, social studies. And then with that, we work to get them more independent from their time coming in from elementary as a 6th grader to getting them ready for high school into that 8th grade year. So with that, we kind of have to understand a little bit about what's our core courses, what's an elective, and also what is an exploratory course. So Mr. Bakke. So with that, our core academics that we have, that we offer, as I talked about, English language arts, mathematics, science, social studies. We also could have physical education as a core course, depending upon the grade level. We might have health, or we might have literacy as a core course, depending upon the grade level. But across all of our grade levels, those 4 pieces hit the core. Now, we do offer exploratories, and we wanted to be able to identify to you guys what exploratories are, because exploratories for our kids are what all of our kids get. We provide these things as things that are good for them. So if you think back 4 years ago, for those board members who were here, we talked about what those Explore options would be. We talked to our parents about what those Explore options should be for our kids. We did talk to our parents, and they said we want certain things for our kids to have here in Lakeville. And so for us, those could be things for the exploratory for all the kids are wheel classes. So industrial tech and STEM, family and consumer science, media arts, visual arts. Spanish is our foreign language that we chose at that time. But then also having some elective offerings. And so our kids, and differentiating between Explore, where everybody gets those, the elective the kids actually get to choose. And with that, you're choosing between whether it's a band opportunity, choral music opportunity, or whether it's a music exploration opportunity for our kids. Now, what makes a middle school different than a junior high is, as I talked about, our teachers are on teams, our kids are on teams. And so each one of us, we have 2 teams per grade level. So with that, we have 6 teams total for across our buildings. But with that, those interdisciplinary teams take care of a core group of kids. Whether it's 150 kids, 160 kids, 175 kids. Those core group of teachers have those kids throughout the day. They can do interdisciplinary things with them, but during their team meetings that they do have during the day, they really focus in on what are the needs of our kids. Do we have kids who need extra? Do we need to bring in parents? Do we need to bring on our community? And really having that time to really wrap around our kids, not only academically, but socially, emotionally, and really supporting them throughout those 3 years. And that's what makes middle school really special. I think you'll see the M on all of our foreheads here as we are middle school people through and through. Now, we also offer kind of a developmental support for our kiddos as well. All of us offer an advisory time. But within that advisory time, our kids get to choose. And you heard our kazoo band, that's their win time, what I need. They chose that as part of an option for them at Kenwood. But there can also be options of, I need to retake a test. I need to get help with Spanish. I need to go weld. I need to do some other things. So with that, our kids get to choose 3 days out of the week where they want to go and the teachers that they want to do that with. So that's what also makes middle school is kind of special. So as I hand it over to Ms. McDermott here, we brought some things. These just happen to be from McGuire. I asked my wheel teachers to kind of wrangle some things. The artwork that you see in front of you, those are done by our kiddos as well. And don't forget the art fair, 2nd through the 20th at the Art Center. We have a lot of McGuire, Kenwood, and Century kids doing their artwork there too. So with that, we're going to leave those here for you tonight, and you can kind of take a look. So I'm going to kick it over to Ms. McDermott, and I'll move. And so next in line.
All right, so we're going to walk through a day in the life of a 6th grader, a 7th grader, and an 8th grader, so you get an idea. So in 6th grade, every day our students have their core classes. So they have English, they have math, their social studies is Minnesota Studies, and then their science is Earth Science. So they have that every day. Plus then they have their advisory every day, 3 days a week, and advisory is their win time. And then we have every other day classes, so we call them day 1, day 2. So one day, one team will be in physical education, the other team will be in their music elective. So students will be in their band, their choir, or their music exploration class. And then we have our term classes that are 7 weeks. And so those are our wheel classes, and then also health and literacy. So those are 2 hours out of the day. That's when our teachers then are on prep or in their team time. So one team would be in health one term, and the other team is in literacy, and then they switch off back and forth. And then for the wheel classes, we have facts, visual arts, media arts, STEM, and Spanish. And you can see what they do there. We differentiate each grade level. So what they learn in 6th grade in those wheel classes is different from what they do in 7th grade and what they do in 8th grade. And we really want to give them an experience, so they get a little bit of a dip each year in those 3 areas. So then by the time they're in 8th grade and they're registering for high school and they're choosing their pass at North or South, that they have a good idea of which route that they want to go. So that's a day in the life of 6th grade, and you're going to hear from some of our 6th grade students next.
going to turn that off.
Of a seventh grader is very similar to a day in the life of a sixth grader. What's different is in seventh grade, the social studies is U.S. history, science is life science, but they still have their 4 classes, advisory and win time. They still have every other day Phi Ed and music electives, so they have band, choir, and music explorations. And then they still have their term classes, so they still go every other term between health and literacy. And then the wheel classes, so they still have facts, visual arts, media arts, STEM, and Spanish. And you can see there behind each of the wheel classes what is different. So in 7th grade, facts, they're going to be sewing their lanyards. Dr. A brought some examples here. In the kitchen, they're cooking. Visual arts, they're printmaking and drawing. Media arts, it's more of the motion, sound, comics. So it's different. STEM, woodworking, I think we have some of the woodworking pieces here for you. So it's different than what it was when they were in 6th grade taking those wheel classes. Oh, 7th grade was going to go.
I don't know.
We'll give it a try.
The hardest thing that I've learned this year is figuring out all of the cells and the cell organelles inside of science.
The hardest thing I've learned this year was to not procrastinate and do my work later.
In science, where I just couldn't really study this one part because it was really hard. And I just had to go home and keep practicing and practicing. I finally got it. I got a 10 out of 10 on my test. So.
We are very kind, very caring, very helpful, very welcoming, especially Dr. A and all the deans and stuff. They're very, very understanding. And the teachers really know how to bring a smile to my face, good and bad days. They all know how to help kids out through things and stuff.
I would say my group of friends always put me better. They always talk and hang out with me and ask things are you okay? How's your day been? What you been doing?
We have to strive to make other schools think of us as their leader and they follow us. It makes us different from other schools in the area.
All right, and then a day in the life of an 8th grade student. So same thing for our core classes, English, math, social studies as global studies. Little piece that is different is physical education and health are every day now in 8th grade. So that is part of the core, we call it. And then they have physical science as their science class. They still have the advisory and win time. For everyday classes, we don't have the every other day, you don't see the day 1, day 2 like we had in 6th and 7th grade when they get into 8th grade. So they do have Phi Ed, and health is about a quarter. About 9 weeks, our Phi Ed teachers will take the students out of the gym and teach them health. So that's every day, which we love in 8th grade. And then they have everyday elective. So they have their music elective, band, choir, or music explorations. And then some of our students are in sports and society. So that is what looks a little different for our 8th graders. And then we have our term classes on the wheel, the facts, visual arts, media arts, STEM, and Spanish. So, day in the life of an 8th grader.
I learned scientific notation and math, and it was challenging, but I think with the help of teachers and asking for the extra support, really helped.
Everything in math, really, because it's just so hard and stuff, just understanding what's happening and stuff. My math teacher, Mr. Hilliard, he's amazing. He posts YouTube videos and stuff, which is really helpful. So watching those really helps.
We are responsible, we show engagement, we are very safe and inclusive here, and it's overall just a great atmosphere, and everybody is always so kind and welcoming.
Finding people you enjoy being around and learning from the people you don't. and just like getting to know like what you like.
So we are, as Dr. A mentioned earlier, we are middle school junkies. We love it, and we know that it takes a village to raise a child, and we have a lot of other middle school junkies that surround and support us every single day, and are here to lay out what some of those other support systems are for our students. And we'll start with our assistant principals and our deans of students. We do have 3 at each middle school. And as you may recall, that is an addition this year. And we are very grateful that we shifted from 2 last year to 3 this current year. And what that really allows our deans to do is to focus on one grade level at a time in supporting not only the students of that grade level, but the staff of that grade level as well. And it allows those deans to loop with the students all 3 years throughout the system. So they'll start in 6th grade, and then they'll follow that group of students to 7th grade and then to 8th grade. So it gives the opportunity for those deans to really nurture some positive relationships with our students. They do everything from building the schedule to being in the hallways to helping those 6th graders with their lockers every single day to helping students navigate and figure out how to adjust to 6th grade life and to be that sort of transition in 7th grade. And then in 8th grade, they're helping guide them through that high school registration process and the transitions that take place as they move on to the next level. Our deans are also very supportive with our teachers, attending those team meetings that Dr. Alexandra was mentioning a little bit earlier. They are instructional coaches for our teachers with the professional development days that we had this year. So we're very, very grateful that they're able to support our students and our families and kind of be that connection between the home and the teachers and the students. In addition to our deans of students, we have a student support specialist at every building. That is a licensed social worker or a licensed counselor. And that student support specialist will work with our students mainly in the SEL categories, students that are just having a rough day. I don't know what it was like for you in middle school. Do you remember your 11 to 14-year-old self? Some days can be hard. And our student support specialists, they step in and they meet the students where they're at, whether it's difficulty coming to school, they're just having a bad day, something in their family might have happened, and they team up with our deans really, really closely in attending team meetings and helping navigate what are the next steps we need to take with some of our students that are having some difficulties. Alongside the student support specialist, each school has a psychologist. A psychologist primarily works with students who have individual education plans. They're helping the case managers with paperwork. They're doing psych evals for students. They're really trying to take a look at the IEP and the goals and objectives that students have and to provide that support system around them. We also have student success liaisons in every building, and we are very thankful to have them partnering with us to help meet the needs of some of our students and some of our families that have difficulty accessing some of the supports both within the school and within the community. In rounding things out, we're very supportive at the middle level to have a school resource officer that provides that link to the Lakeville Police Department. Primarily, the school resource officer is there to help all of us feel safe. We know that we need to feel safe when we come to school. We need to feel like somebody is there to protect and to guide us. But in addition to that, what is really unique about the resource officer at the middle school that we all share is that that resource officer is there for education. They team up with our teachers on getting into classrooms and helping students understand some of the legalities that are out there, some of the challenges that our youth are currently facing, and navigating and walking alongside. We'll oftentimes see our SROs in the cafeteria interacting with students, so students no longer look at police officers as, ooh, I'm scared of that person, but more, I want to connect with that person. So very, very thankful to have all of those supports for our students and our families. I want to take just a minute to talk a little bit about the other aspect of things. We hit the academics, but what is a driving force and what is so special about the middle school is having students explore and to try different activities or athletics. As you can see, the top one there is athletics. We offer 3 different seasons of sports and activities for our students, very similar to what the high school does, and you can get an idea of what students can sign up for in the fall or in the winter and in the spring. And something that we would just love, especially our elementary folks who might be tuning in and listening here, is that these are very non-threatening environments. You can, if you've never played tennis before and you want to take up tennis, go for it. That's great. You know, we'll oftentimes get over 100 students that are participating in cross country. They just want to be around each other, and that social aspect is so important at the middle level because it's about connecting with somebody else and trying something new. And speaking of something new, when we move on into our activities and the clubs that we offer, every fall, our activities department and our teachers put together a club booklet for our students. That typically comes out in October, and then our students have a wide variety of activities and clubs to choose from. And these can be really initiated in 2 different ways. They can be initiated by a staff member who says, I love chess and I want to have a chess club and I am very passionate about it and I want to provide a space for our students to participate and to learn more about that. But what I find really awesome about middle school students is when they come up with the idea and they say, I would love to start this club because it means something to me and it means something to my friends. And then they find a staff member that would like to, you know, team up with them, and then they can take that and they can run with it. Some of the clubs are small. There might be 10 students in the club. They meet after school 1 day a week, and others might be a little bit larger. You can see we have the example of the musical there. Century Middle School just had an awesome performance of Annie Jr. We're very thankful for the high volumes of parents and students that participated in that, and we had over 100 students participate in that as members of the cast and crew. And once again, just similar to the athletics, these are very non-threatening environments for our students where they just want to be a part of something. So as kids transition into the middle school and work their way through the middle school, we do believe that this is an integral part of their experience. We want them to be academically solid, but we also want them to be socially engaged and to get to know other students and to experience something new. And then finally, just rounding out and circling back with the athletics, we know that some of our students are really gifted and talented, and those students do have the opportunity to participate and to try out for high school teams. And then we have a number of strong booster club associations as well that offer a wide variety for our students with the athletics that you may not see on the screen there. And the last thing that I would just like to reference before we close things out here is I know that Director Cameron talked a little bit at the very beginning of the meeting about the excitement and the need within the middle schools. And we're feeling the pinch. And the board knows the pinch, and we took some actions to adjust things for our boundaries. And personally, at Century Middle School, it's going to be difficult for us to lose some of our current 6th and 7th graders as they transition to Kenwood. And I know we have some students from Kenwood that are transitioning to McGuire Middle School, and that is going to be helpful for the next year or 2. But as you can see by the chart here on the left, we know where we currently stand, and we know how the numbers are growing. And don't get me wrong, it's a good problem to have. We love it that families want to move to Lakeville. We know that there's going to be an increase of 8% over the next 5 years. And in order for us to open our doors and welcome our students into the building and to continue to provide the positive educational experiences for our students, we need the space to be able to do that. So we just encourage people that have questions to reach out to any one of the 3 of us. We're happy to connect with you. We're happy to show you our buildings, and you can certainly learn more about the referendum at isd194.org/vote. So with that, that concludes our formal presentation, and we would be happy to take any comments or questions that you may have.
Great, thanks for that presentation. Director Baker.
So back a couple slides, you were talking about the deans and how you now have 3 one for each grade level. My question revolves around what responsibility do the deans have with helping alleviate some of the administrative burden on principals? For example, staff observations, discipline, things like that. And I ask because some of the larger middle schools in the area choose to have like an assistant principal as one of those roles, and then the other two are deans, just to kind of, so that you have someone to help with that. So I'm just curious as to what that model looks like.
Yep, I'll dive in to speak to that a little bit, and then my counterparts can add on a little bit. Number one, yes, it does certainly help with the teacher observations as well, and it helps with the coaching and the mentoring of our new students that come into the building. But it really gets us back to a point where we can be more proactive with students and teachers rather than reactive. And when you can attach yourself to one grade level and you get to know those students really well, you establish relationships with them, and you know what the students need. And when you know what they need, then you can better be proactive about meeting those needs. And a lot of that time is being in the classrooms with students, with teachers, engaged in the learning, versus I'm in the office and students are just coming to me all the time, and I'm just overwhelmed. So it's helped us to flip that script a little bit.
Director Thompson, do you have your hand? You had your hand up, right?
Yeah.
All right, go for it.
I've got like 5 questions, but I'll fire off with the first 2 and then pause and give it to the floor. So 3 years ago, we had to do a $7 million cut, and we made the middle school team had to make the biggest impact in that effort by rearranging your schedule and so forth. Part of that rearranging of schedule, we ended up reducing the amount of ELA time, reading to English. I believe it was 2 classes, and we dropped it down to like just 1.5. So it's been a couple years, so I'm just curious to know if the lack of that additional half an hour has, if the data has shown if the academics have been staying still, or if they've declined just a little bit. And then my secondary question on top of that is, with this new 7th Wheel program, we've got our kids participating in a variety of different topics, and I think that's great. But do we have too much equipment where they don't have enough time to actually do things? So as an example, I had a chance to walk through Kenwood Middle School, and you guys have this massive like wood shopping category or space where you whittle wood, I'm sure, or whatever they do. But the STEM or the 7 rotation program is so short. So I'm just wondering, like, does some of that stuff move? Does it not? Do we take it? Are we underutilizing the things that we have there because of the 7th Wheel program? So those are the 2 questions that I have right now, and I'll come back to a couple others.
All right, I'm going to take the ELA question for you. A couple of things with that is we are in our standards-based review process, and so it's very hard to tell any impacts because we are shifting to new standards. So we're under that, right, and we have a new MCA test, and so we can't compare our old data to our new data because we have a new MCA test. So that's one thing. And then 2, we're going to be adopting new curriculum. And so it's hard to tell because we won't have accurate data to be able to look at. So we don't have a baseline. Our new standards with the shifting, there's reciprocity there, which means we have to be teaching everything together. And before we were teaching it separately in the 2 courses. And so if you remember when we did talk about it, we did have to make the shift because of the new standards. So we need to see what the data is going to show, and then also getting our staff this new curriculum and stuff. Sandy and her team have been doing a really amazing job with our staff, and there's a lot of energy and excitement with our literacy teachers and our ELA teachers. So we're hopeful that we're still moving in the right direction despite having to make those changes. So time will tell with what the data is going to show.
I get to answer your STEM question. So I think it's more than STEM. You're asking about Wheel and fitting everything in. So we are guided by the times we have in the day. And within that amount of time, you have to fit in all of your cores, your musics, your standards that the state wants you to have. And with that, when we were in front of you before, we said, we can fit these certain things in for all the kids to have an experience. And so you're not only balancing what the state needs as requirements, you're also balancing, can I fit kids into classes? Can I have them move through? Do I have enough classes for my kids to take? And so with that, that's where we kind of have the jumping off point. So with that 7-week time, is it fast? Yes. Is it ideal? No. Would we love to have 10 weeks or 12 weeks or things like that? Yes. But can we fit that into a schedule that would work for all of our kids in our community and be cost effective for our board? Probably not, because again, you're talking about a lot more options for our kids that you'd have to be able to offer. Now, have our teachers done a fantastic job to be able to get a 7th grade kiddo to not only cut the wood, but make it look like a chair at the end of the product, or be able to do a clay project in a 7-week piece? I mean, our teachers have done such a great job with our kids in that short amount of time to create products that you see here. And with that, it's not just the products, it's the skills from the artwork that you have right in front of you as well. So in that 7 weeks, a lot happens, and there is no downtime. They go, 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 and at the end of the term, we get a new group of kids transitioning, and they go into that next class. So would we love to have more? Absolutely. Trying to fit into a schedule would be a challenge. Because I can remember having the conversation with you 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and you said, I want to see another schedule. And I said, sir, we offered you 5 schedules. And I remember that like it was yesterday. And so with that, it was like, this is what we can do with what we have.
Other questions? Director Anderson?
Yes, I will come back to, I do feel like we're bringing up some history here in terms of a levy a couple of years ago that did not pass that aimed to increase counselor support in your schools. So I realize that you have one student support specialist. Psychologist term here is not providing counseling support generally, right? It's more SPED and that. So I guess I'm wondering where you all feel you stand in terms of what your needs are as we consider future levies.
Do you want to? Sure. Okay.
Yeah, when we were talking about the systems of support that you see up there on the screen, it is really, really difficult and next to impossible to do what we want to do under the current model. Going back to what you asked Ms. Baker regarding the role of the deans, that has helped tremendously, but it's not enough. I mean, in an ideal sense, we would love to see one student support specialist and one dean per grade level. Now they're looping in tandem, and you take 1,000 students currently at Century for one student support specialist, do the math. There's nothing okay or right about that, and it's just extremely challenging. So in an ideal world, looking ahead to the future, the 3rd dean has helped, but really 2 additional people are needed in each middle school to truly meet the needs of our students.
Director Thompson, I'm going to circle back to you now.
Thank you. I think the high school model, we were fortunate to be able to put 4 deans plus 4 counselors. And so if the student support specialist was similar in that manner, one could argue, you should have something similar to that. And 1,000 students in each middle school, we've got 3,000 middle school students. That's crazy, and we've got 3,000 more coming. And so I think I've seen your face a couple times on social media. I think there's a couple of videos there's a couple of videos going around. So this would be my plug also to that. We do have a levy coming up. The board made a decision to expand the middle schools. It's about $150 million. Decided to go down that path versus building a brand new middle school, which is $250 million. And so there's some cost savings there, but it enables us to be able to grow, skill for growth as we move forward over the next few years. I do have, my last question is this daily experiences. So we did get some results last year in the spring, and obviously there's a traditional drop-off from elementary to middle school to high school. And I believe the data that I was looking at showed that the daily experiences are usually around the 85-90% for elementary. Then they realize, this is middle school, we have no recess, there's less time to maybe goof around, and there's structured schedules, but the daily experience metrics are in the mid-60s. And so while I'm not an expert, I'm just curious, there's a lot of activities that they can do. They've got these wheel programs now, but these are the scores from spring of last year. So I'm just curious, Are you guys doing anything? What are you guys doing? What do you think? Or is that candidly of expected? Like, is 65 a good number for sixth graders? I just don't know what they're doing. I don't know.
So can we always improve? Yes, we can always improve. And we always look to how can we improve. And we talk to our kids about how can we improve. But if you look about some of the daily desired experience responses of the, I don't want to do homework. Well, it's school, we have homework, so that brings down a daily desired experience. Or I want more time with my friends. That's great, however, I need math to be taught and science. And so some of those things get dropped down because of those when we dig a little bit deeper into the data, but we're always trying to improve. I think our key that you see, though, as part of our one daily desired piece is, do they feel cared for and accepted by the adults in the building? I think we're in like the 75th to 85th range. That, to us, is very telling. That our teachers and our staff are really doing a great job with our kids, relationship building, and making sure that there's a connection with an adult. And that is the data that I really look at. So,
One thing that I would add on there is a lot of the students, when they get to the middle school, they want longer passing times. They want longer lunches.
Yep.
Those two things are critically important.
And no homework.
And no homework.
Dr. Anderson?
So one of the things that has changed at the high school level is with BAR, with moving that in for ninth graders. I guess I'm wondering, at the middle school level, do you feel like all of that is being addressed in teams, or is there anything additional, like in terms of how the teams are functioning, or is there something additional that BAR would help with at that level?
Well, with our team time, we are able to look at the data and be able to see where our students are at. So we don't have BAR, but we have that built-in time. And with going to having 3 deans per grade level, it's helped being intentional with having an administrator at those team meetings weekly. So I know, like in my building, weekly, we're looking at the reports, and I know each of our buildings are getting the weekly reports, the EWSs, so we're able to see what students are failing, where our attendance rates are at, where our behavior data is at. And we're looking at that weekly, and then we're having conversations around our students. And then we're intentional about what students we're pulling in for win time. We've rearranged our advisory schedule this year. Our shared leadership team has looked at that, and we've rearranged things like how we operate. So we're able to look at our data first, then schedule kids into win time, our time when our deans are able to go in and meet with the teachers and stuff. So we don't have BAR, but we have team, and that SEL piece and that time when the school psych, the student support specialist, the dean can go in, principals are able to go in. That is so valuable, and we are looking at our student data and being more intentional about it. And this year, I feel like we've been able to do a better job with that because we have added another administrator to the team. And so hopefully we'll see improvement with that. I also think with the DDE, with having that extra administrator, we have been able to support students better with that too. So I'm hopeful that our scores will have increased because of that too. But teaming really does lend itself to be able to look at our data and support our students. But having another counselor or two would be able to help us, because then you'd have the whole wrap around there.
Other questions? Dr. Thompson?
So my last question is very similar. I think what you asked was, like, if you had $500,000 each, right? I mean, obviously, the student support specialist has been a huge function in supporting your efforts. As we prepare for the upcoming budget for next year, we've got conversations that we need to have. We've got the budget that needs to be approved by end of June. Be curious, like, I think a month ago we had the elementary staff here, and I think, was it Dahlstrom? Principal Dahlstrom said that he wanted more tutors and recess support so that 300 kids aren't running wild out in the backyard playground. But what would you need or would like from a resource support, a tech support, or other need in addition to the student support specialist that you shared earlier?
Well, we could all say it at the same time, that we want interventionists. We have this conversation all the time that we need math and reading interventionists at each of our buildings, for sure. It is a need. We each need at least 2. At least 2 per building, so one math, 1 reading at each building, plus you would need to add 2 student support specialists. And if you really wanted to be nice, you could throw in a social worker at each building too. So there you go, there's your, you asked for it, so. But we need intervention, math and reading intervention at the middle level.
Any other questions from the board? All right, well, thank you so much for coming tonight and all you do to support our kids. All right, we'll move to the LTF bond sale update. Director Holmgren and then Shelby McQuay of Ellers are here tonight to walk us through this. So thank you for being here.
Yes, good evening. Directors of the board, Superintendent Bauman. Yes, tonight we have just kind of a update on the LTFM bond sale that'll be coming up next month, and we have Shelby McQuay here from Ellers to give you that information.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Bauman, you have the pre-sale report in front of you. It's what you've seen in the past for your other bond issues. It's broken up into 3 sections, kind of. First, the authority, which is board authority to issue the debt for certain types of projects like deferred maintenance. And then that resolution was adopted in conjunction with your 10-year plan this summer at the July 22nd meeting. The second kind of areas of the report just touch on the issuance and the sale of the debt. It'll be about an 11-year bond, $20.6 million, and we're anticipating about a 3.09% interest rate on those bonds, given current market conditions, along with the premium structure, meaning that the bondholders will pay more than the face value of the bonds, and you'll be able to use that as a deposit in your construction fund. The sale will be competitive. We'll get a rating on the bonds, and we have that process set up. And then the kind of the last section of the pre-sale report just outlines a few of your obligations once you have tax-exempt debt on the market. You already have tax-exempt debt out there on the market. You're already abiding by those disclosure items, and so this will just be part of that ongoing disclosure. The last couple items, just the timeline, and then the overall schedules, the sources and uses, and then your long-term facilities maintenance debt plan. The last page just represents where we're trying to keep that tax impact nice and level, while still making sure that you're completing all the deferred maintenance projects that you have on your list, and not affecting taxes up and down as a result of some of those initiatives that you're undergoing on an annual basis. So I'm happy to answer any questions. This is purely informational tonight, and the action item was already done this summer.
All right, great. Director Carbone?
Yeah, thank you. What type of bond rating are you anticipating?
So the district currently has a bond rating, an underlying bond rating of an A1. You're rated by Moody's. You're also participating in the state credit enhancement program, which is essentially like an insurance program. So when the bondholders look at your bonds, they'll see essentially the AA1 rating, which is 1 notch down from the state's AAA rating. So it'll be insured to that degree, but your underlying rating is an A1, and we don't anticipate much movement from that.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions, Director Thompson? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is a second time for me going through this exercise. Was it last year or maybe 2 years ago? 2 years ago, we took out a $20 million bond, and I think right before that, our rating at a district did drop, and so there are other school districts that I think were maybe in the AA's or AAA's, but at the time of our financial scenario, we ended up going down 1. I don't know if it would be a major difference for us to be at an AA and have lower interest rates, but I'm assuming there is, but I don't know how material that would be. I think that for me, the biggest issue that not even an issue, but just more, and I talked about this 2 years ago, is that as we take on more debt, $20,000, eventually we'll have to pay that interest back. And so every year we take out $20 million, we fix things. In the next 2 years, we take out another $20 million and we fix things. But as we continue to pay interest on 5 transactions of $20 million. By the sixth transaction, what we have to pay is half or 60% interest or whatever it may be. Obviously, we're going to try to get to a tax rate of about that 20% number, which is where we want to be. But I think I don't know, that we just take out loans every 2 years, and we need to, because our maintenance issues that need to get taken care of. But for us as a board, we need to think about what an operating levy or a capital budget levy. I know we've had some conversations. I think that's coming. Some conversations that we just had about that. That is just one thing to think about. Again, we're taking out a loan for $20 million every 2 years, and eventually it's going to be a point where we're paying a lot of interest. That's all.
Dr. Anderson?
Yeah, I think my question was somewhat maybe captured in what you said in the beginning, which was, I know that our rating went down, but it has gone back up to some degree.
It
Or
stayed,
you're assuming? Oh, it
it
stayed the
doesn't
same.
move quite that fast.
Okay.
Well, I always call it like a grade point average, right? It's quick to go down and very slow to go back up. But
So we're at the
there's-
same that we were 2 years ago?
Yep.
Okay.
Maybe next year.
But we do have a call with Moody's next month, right?
Yes, we have a call scheduled with them, so we will get a rating on the bonds. It certainly could go up or down. They like to see a lot of trend when they start to move
Just want to
upward.
make sure everybody knows
Yep.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead,
I was-
Director Swanson. Oh, sorry, Anderson.
Oh, go ahead.
Then Swanson.
I was just going to say, it does seem like we're obviously showing a trend in the positive direction in terms of what's in our savings account and our general fund, so I was just hopeful, but maybe it won't be that fast.
Director Swanson?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a reality for school districts across the state, and this is how you fund your deferred maintenance through LTFM bonds and
So,
this kind of structure.
Madam Chair, members of the board, you are considered a big 1A district, meaning that you fall under this sort of grandfathered structure, which allows you to exceed your 380 per pupil of LTFM. So every other of the 330 districts around the state, besides about 302 districts around the state, are limited to the 380 per pupil. You, as a 1A district, are allowed to put on your LTFM plan the expenditures that you have and fund those through a mix of pay-go and of bonds. So every year, you have about $20 million of deferred maintenance bonds, or excuse me, deferred maintenance projects each year on the LTFM plan. So every other year, we're looking at about an issuance of $20 million to fund a portion of those projects, and then the rest is just coming from just a levy on your tax base, so essentially paying cash. So you're not bonding for the full amount of the projects, but you are bonding for a portion in order to keep the taxes nice and level over time. So while this isn't a luxury that all school districts in the state have to be able to keep and maintain their facilities, most, I would say, of the 1A districts do a combination of bond and levy.
And just to remind the board and the community, nothing is changing in terms of what was approved. This is just an update on what the board already approved. I forget the date you said, but
Madam Chair, that's correct.
Yeah, last
July
spring.
22nd.
Yeah, yeah. Great. Director Thompson?
Yeah, I mean, and this is just more of a financial philosophy of, do we want to go to the public and ask for $20 million every 2 years as a capital budget and use that to make maintenance updates, continuously. And it's just that we've got so many buildings, they're older, we've got some newer ones, but again, eventually, as we continue to do this, the $20 million loans that we take out every 2 years, like eventually we gotta pay it back. And so the full $20 million, half of it ends up being debt payments and the other half is what we can actually consume. So are we just kicking the can down the road versus do we need to do a capital budget for an XYZ dollars to kind of recalibrate where our building infrastructure is at so that we don't have to take out $20 million loans every 2 years? But those are just thoughts out loud. Go ahead.
Great.
Mr. Swanson.
Director Swanson?
Oh, I mean, what you're saying is essentially, if you were able to do a levy and kind of get ahead of the payments, so then you save the money on the interest payments, right? So then instead of making interest payments, you're banking money, that you'd use on future payments and future maintenance.
Director Anderson?
It's a really great idea in theory. And it's like we are continuing to consider levies that are targeted towards student needs in the buildings. And so I feel like we already kind of have a challenge communicating to our community about the needs and the perception that we're always coming for more.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine. I love the idea from a financial perspective, and it would be a difficult sell to do that.
It would free up money for student needs too, though. All that interest. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
No.
Yeah, thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
Yes, we'll be back with the results of the sale next month.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll move to section
that's the other side
section
of the equation.
6 of our agenda, the Achievement and Integration Plan. So at our last work session 2 weeks ago, we discussed the Achievement and Integration Plan that the district is recommending implementing at length with, and thank you for being here, both of you, Director Nicole Adams, Director of School and Continuous Improvement, and Jamie Shoemaker, Achievement and Integration Coordinator. You all weren't planning on doing a presentation, correct? So I have a summary from what we discussed. So at our work session, we discussed that the plan requires 3 different types of goals: achievement goal, an integration goal, and a teacher equity goal. And that the plan that was presented to us to achieve things within those 3 categories was really rooted in robust data analysis of what's been happening in our district and where the needs are as a result of that data. And I believe we discussed that at length at our work session. So the 3, kind of in a nutshell, that are also in the board packet are around the achievement goal is to look at FastBridge scores and addressing achievement gap that is resulting from our FastBridge reading scores in particular, correct? The integration goal is around looking at our district's use of exclusionary discipline, particularly against students of color, finding that we have a much higher rate of using exclusionary discipline for students of color. And then the teacher equity goal is around fully implementing the district's Lakeville framework, which the district and board have approved to develop and implement an equity framework and infrastructure that will include research-based practices and policies, create a professional development plan, and better align teacher evaluation to the new state standards. So tonight, this plan is being brought forward to the board for consideration for approval. And so with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the Achievement and Integration Plan as presented in the board packet. We will get to discussion too.
I make a motion.
First by Director Baker. Is there
I'll
a second?
second.
Second by Director Anderson. Discussion. Yeah, Director Thompson.
All right, so I had a chance to listen to the board meeting 2 weeks ago, so thank you for going over that and talking to the board. I've got a series of questions, so I'll try to parse it out a little bit and then let other folks kind of chat along the way. I just want to make sure I understand the design of the 2026-29 A&I focus plan. This is the second time us going for a few of us going through this. The first one is the achievement plan. It says that this goals target the student with the largest achievement gap, Latino and Hispanic students compared to white students. And so we're very specific about just those 2 demographics. And so I'm looking to learn more about that. So from my understanding, I thought that whatever we were doing, it is applied to all students. And so we're not segregating or anything around who can get the delivery services or not. The integration section talks about how we are going to look at the key metrics and we'll examine the higher rates at which Black students and Latino and Hispanic students are suspended out of the school compared to white students. That's what I'm reading. And so I'd love to hear the data on if you guys did any research. Why were they suspended? Did it actually warrant a suspension? And then why would we so I'm looking to learn more. Why? But if the issue warranted a suspension, we're just applying the rule, and people are following. We're just following the students are following the rules, and our disciplinary policy. And then the third thing that I see here is teacher equity, where we're going to develop implementation of a district-wide equity framework and infrastructure. So I'm looking to understand what does that mean? Because again, we do state that this effort will complement the Lakeville framework, but I don't know, I couldn't read where equity framework was in here. So those are the three metrics that I saw. And so I do want to just make sure that I look at the budget breakdown of the spending priorities. And so while we're tracking Hispanic metrics, we're looking at why Black and Hispanic kids are suspended more, and we're going to implement equity framework with the $2 million that we're going to get. So that's what I'm reading. And with the $2 million that we're going to get, we're gonna pay for 7 school success liaisons, and so $620,000 out of that $2 million is going to pay for those folks. And if the overall objective is academic achievement, and like, are these school success liaisons teaching these kids how to do math, reading, and actually tracking, and do we have data that tracks the success metrics of those 7 individuals? Because we're only hiring 3 reading interventionalists out of this $2 million, and we just literally just heard the middle school teachers or principals saying that they need more math and reading interventionalists, and I'm just wondering, that is more tactical that we can actually measurably see. And so I'd like to actually see us eliminate these school success liaisons, get rid of the 7, and reallocate those dollars so that we have 10 reading interventionalists deployed across our elementary and middle schools, so we can actually tactically show academic achievement amongst all students who are in the lower metrics of proficiency. So that's what I see initially. And then lastly, I'll say our director, coordinator, and administrative assistant, out of the $2 million, we're allocating $500,000 towards that. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, so I'll pause here. Those are the things that I saw that I'd love to get further discussion with the board and whoever wants to share.
So, Director Thompson, I know you weren't able to be at the work session. However, I feel like the whole board discussed this at length. We had ample time. Everyone asked any question that they had at that moment. Not to say that there couldn't be more tonight. What's being brought forward to the board tonight is consideration for approval of this plan. Okay. If you would like to make a motion to alter the plan, you can do that, but that's not, unless that's a formal motion. The plan as presented is what's being discussed tonight. Director Thompson. Director. Or do you want to respond to any of those?
Well, there was a lot of content there.
Sorry.
And I would like to know which one would you like us to address first?
I'd like to know more about the school success liaisons. I want to make sure that I want to be clear. There is value in those in that role, but if we've got $2 million allocated towards academic achievement, and we want to show a data metric, current state and future state, do we have any data that actually does that right now?
Sure. I'm going to let Dr. Schumacher address that, because he directly works with our liaisons, and he also has expertise in the area of educational measurement. And so I'm going to let him speak to that piece.
Sure. Well, I think there's a few different ways that it's important to answer this question. First of all, I think if we look at the research literature generally, school connectedness is an incredibly important driver of school success, academic success as well as behavioral success, for students, particularly those who are historically most marginalized in our school systems. And what school connectedness is whether or not you feel like school is a place where you see yourself as safe, as welcome, as cared for, et cetera. Now, there's a host of research around positions like what we call a school success liaison that says that they drastically improve school connectedness. So starting with generally the research literature says that this kind of a position is valuable. Now, when I came in, I didn't want to assume that anything that's on the budget that I inherited was the thing we should be spending money on. So I've spent the first 6 months of my entire time here, basically almost all of my time, trying to do data collection about what is and is not working with A&I. I met with leaders from just about every building. There was a couple of elementary buildings that I did not meet with. And I asked them, I had about an hour to 90 minutes with each team, and I said, what is the best use of money that we are using in with regard to the A&I budget, and what could we do without, and if you were in charge of the budget, what would you want to see? Now, to that third point, many of them did say the thing about interventionists. And I do think that interventionists would be a fantastic thing for us to be investing in. I think it's also important to note that the A&I budget is not a teaching and learning budget, right? The A&I budget has to be much broader than that. And so the thing about a school success liaison is they do have academic support, in the sense that they are often doing direct academic intervention, even though that's not their job. They end up doing all kinds of homework support. They do all kinds of academic support to help students who are maybe having a hard time that day get back on track so that they can get back into the classroom. And so they are having an academic impact, but their impact is actually much broader than say, an interventionist might be. Then within that, the other thing that I want to note is that the very first thing that every single building leader that I met with said is, our school success liaisons are invaluable, right? Every single one of them said that. And they said because of the ways that they are creating connections with a family that otherwise doesn't pick up the phone when we call, when we're trying to address, an academic need or a behavior need or whatever it might be, that they are able to translate cultural norms for our teachers when our teachers confused about why is this particular thing happening in our classroom? They can say, well, it's common in, say, the Somali community for X, Y, and Z to be the assumption around how school works, right? So how can we then bridge that difference? So the point here is that their impact, I could go into a whole bunch of data, but I do think if what you are looking for is this position leads to this academic outcome, you can't necessarily even say that for most positions that exist. That's one of the notorious challenges of human subjects research when it comes to what are the things that drive educational success, right? It's why, for instance, pay for performance is not something that works, because we can't tie an individual learning specific thing to only the job of an individual teacher, right? And so what I would say is that there is consensus among our school leaders that the school success liaisons are vital. And I would say that I see day in and day out all of the important work that they are doing that is leading to greater academic success, as well as success with regard to things like what you brought up with regard to exclusionary discipline, right? If our school success liaison has a relationship with a student, and a student is having a really bad day and has a blow up with a teacher, if that school success liaison who has that relationship can then talk to that student, it's more likely that that student ends up back in class 15 minutes later, rather than things escalating and eventually perhaps leading to an out-of-school suspension or something along those lines. So I say all of this because I think it's really important that, I'll note that the way that you said, these positions have value, but. And I want to be careful that we're not devaluing the work of these incredible professionals who are tireless in their efforts to support some of the families that traditionally, but we're not supporting that well in our district, but also our data bears out that we need to be doing more to support in our district. And so I want to caution us from speaking about them writ large in a way that's disconnected from the day-to-day work that they do, which includes everything from food access work to academic intervention, right?
Let's move to Director Swanson.
Yeah, just one point of clarification too for the public or anyone who's listening. I mean, we have to fulfill certain statutory requirements. Correct. And then we are reimbursed for these expenses. So it's essentially, supplemental funding, to provide services to our students. So it's not taken away from our general fund. Just wanted to clarify that for anyone who's wondering about this $2 million budget. But also, kind of to Brian's question, what's your flexibility with the statutory requirements for kind of, shifting around priorities or how you want to create a staffing model for this A&I budget or A&I plan, I guess? I mean, could you could you change it drastically if you
We could
wanted to?
change it completely. I think it's important to note that the budget that we presented was actually reflective of exactly what you're describing, which is that we looked at the data about, for instance, Young Scholars, which is a phenomenal program, and we said to the district, we are happy to continue supporting this. And also, we think that this program has shown its success to the point where it should be at least partially carried by the general fund, because it has shown how successful it is. Which is what then happened, which frees up money for us then to propose these 2 new positions that are geared toward intervention for EL students specifically because of some of the needs that we're hearing through our needs analysis around how academics can be addressed through improving our processes in that area, right? And so we have a ton of room, and we have, our building leaders have affirmed for us that one of the ways that we should be spending that money is in our largest budget item, which is the school success liaisons.
Other questions? Director Thompson? Oh, sorry, Director Carbone.
Yeah, thank you. I want to springboard off of what Director Thompson said, a couple of his comments. I know you mentioned that there's flexibility in the program and you can change and modify it accordingly, but once you hire a body for a position, you sort of have to sustain that cost and you sort of have to sustain that position. So how this comes out initially is really important. Otherwise, you're going to have 5 of these and you don't need 5 6 months from now. You need 3, you need 2 of these, and you understand what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something that's crucial in, back to Brian's point, are these the right people for what we're going forward with? A couple of other comments that Brian made that I had some concerns about too when I went back. And Amber, I know we discussed this 2 weeks ago, but I went back and read everything again, and as I read it, there were some cautions that came to mind. For instance, in the overview of the integration section, the verbiage is, addressing disproportionate use of exclusionary discipline against students of color. And then, it says academic year 24-25, Black students 3 times, Latino, Hispanics 2.5 times suspension compared to white students. When I looked at that, and then I looked at it again, and then I looked at it again, I got the sense that, there may be some who would come to the conclusion that there's bias going on in the school system when you just look at that as a raw statement. So one of my questions is, if you took each one of these suspension cases and you reviewed them again, and you only looked at the behavior, and you took out race, you took out name, you took out income, you took out everything else other than just behavior. So it's a blind decision. Would they still have been suspended? I'm assuming the question or the answer to that is yes. You're going maybe not.
I would say it probably depends, because I don't think it's possible to decontextualize any of those things, right?
So, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I just mean, like, for instance, that there's research that indicates that a school professional is more likely to see a Black boy of age 11 as acting as if they are 16. Right, which can go into a whole bunch of different reasons for why that is the case. But if you are treating somebody from a cognitive development perspective as if they should be 16, even though they are 11, and then treating their peers as if they are 11, right, then you're more likely to hold them to a different standard when it comes to behavior. But there's not an easy way to disentangle that.
So where's the data to prove that? I mean, when I look at when I look in strategy number 2, because this intrigued me, is the more I turned the page, the more I started wondering, well, something doesn't connect here. So when I looked at strategy 2 in integration, and it was data alignment and accuracy.
Correct.
And it was specifically talking about the exclusionary discipline.
Right.
The statement was data collection is not consistent.
Correct.
And it's difficult to understand the baseline and the scope.
Correct.
So if the data is not solid, how are we making solid data statements?
Well, I would argue that we can't until we do that work. But one of the things, for instance, that drives me to say that is that, so this is my area of dissertation research, right? My PhD is in the area focused on student behavior and disproportionate discipline, right? And what you tend to see across the board is that rates of in-school suspension, or something that we might call in-school suspension, are, if you're sort of tracking your data accurately, are going to be about twice as high as your rates of out-of-school suspension, right? Because it's more likely that when something happens, a student is kept in the school in some form or fashion. They might miss a day of class doing something else, but they're not sent home, in part because the legal standard for sending a kid home is considerably higher. But in our data, our rates of in-school suspension are considerably lower than our rates of out-of-school suspension. And yet, I know there are things that are happening in our schools that we're coding in other ways, right? We're not coding it as in-school suspension. We're coding it under 9 different codes. And so what we're talking about is, to get a full understanding of the nature of the problem, we need to have a better accounting of what is the consistency, let's just use North and South, between North and South about how they are recording their data, so that then we can say, okay, the numbers that said that a black student is 3 times as likely to be suspended as a white student is accurate, or maybe it's not. I'm not wholly actually sure until I can get to the bottom of that. But then if it is accurate, then the next step becomes, are black students more likely to be suspended for the same or similar behaviors as white students? Which the research literature would say, yeah, they are probably going to be suspended more likely for the same or similar behaviors. And so then from there, it allows us to actually begin to take up the work, which is why in the plan, we said that a lot of the intervention type work would start in year 2. In year 1, it would be about working with our school principals and our data clerks, et cetera, to make sure that the data that we have is actually telling the story that we think it's telling.
But that's one last comment, Amber, and I'll pass the torch. That's where I'm uncomfortable, okay? Because we're hiring people. We're talking about a $2 million, and even though it's being subsidized, I get that, but it's still coming out of tax funding, taxpayer money. We all pay state taxes, and if it's not on a local level, we pay it on a state level. So where I'm uncomfortable is, again, if we're basing hiring instead of interventionists, were they liaisons?
School success liaisons.
Yeah, thank you. If we're basing decisions on hiring instead of Brian's comment about hiring interventionists, and we want to do liaisons, forgive me if I mispronounce that. But the data that we're talking about, 3 times black student, 2.5 times Latino and Hispanic, if that's not solid data because of what we're talking about here, I'm uncomfortable with spending the money and hiring those people.
Well, I'll note that particular goal requires no hiring in the short term. There might be hiring that happens in year 2 or year 3 that we've proposed, but that in that particular goal, it's using staff that are already on our books to address the need, right? And recognizing that those are numbers we are already reporting to the federal government and to the state government that are published, right? So the federal government says Lakeville suspends black kids at 3 times the rate of white kids, right? It's already there. So for us, it's about saying, is that accurate? Regardless, there is an issue there that needs to be addressed.
And that's exactly it. It's the accuracy aspect of this that's making me feel uncomfortable.
Which is why year 1 is about giving you what you want.
I'd like to, can I add something? And I think you're leading us there. Dr. Ut Schumacher. Am I saying your name right?
Schumacher, yeah.
Schumacher.
I always said to
Thank
my
you.
students when I was a high school student, it's like but without the B, and then they'd laugh, and then they'd never forget it.
Is that school districts, correct me if I'm wrong, are required to track disciplinary
Correct.
Actions based
Track
on
and
race.
report federally and by state,
And
yeah.
so we are required to do this.
Mhm.
What you're saying and what you're finding is that we need to make sure we're reporting numbers, but we should make sure that those are as accurate as possible.
Correct.
And then if we find that it's different than what we've been able to collect thus far, what's the plan to address discrepancy?
Yep.
So this isn't a new activity. Every school district has to do this.
Correct.
It's just we need to do it thoroughly.
Yeah. Well, and I would be incredibly encouraged if after doing this data work, we're like, okay, black students are suspended at a rate that's 1.5 times the rate of white students. I'm like, that means we're doing better than we thought. Great. That's still concerning to me. So then what can we do to try to create more parity and equity in the way that we address student discipline?
So tracking this is not new.
No.
It's required.
Correct.
Okay.
It's been done for a long
Baker.
time.
And then her hand, I called on her, I realized, a long time ago.
First of all, I just want to point out that this is something through MDE that they study across the entire state of Minnesota because all of our districts struggle with this. So I just wanted to point that out. This is not just a Lakeville issue. Also, I just wanted to speak to the work of the liaisons. I think I love the fact of the academic interventionists, but I think we are, I guess, missing the boat when we think about the impact that they have every day on just the well-being of our students. Because if you have a student that doesn't feel seen, doesn't feel heard, is worried about where they're going to get their next meal, like nobody looks like them, and if you add in special education on top of that and all the acronyms and trying to understand that when you don't originally speak the language, those liaisons are vital to the success of students. I just think about the last several weeks where they've been helping families get food, helping families feel safe, finding resources. And without those resources, I don't know if those students would still be attending school. So I just think that there's so much more to that role than just an academic interventionist.
I'd also like to point out and respond to that. We just saw with our middle school principals that our liaisons, 2 years ago, we shifted our liaisons to be full-time at our middle and high school buildings, and that has made a huge difference to the point where they are now listing them as a vital support resource, which also connects to that DDE data that we are concerned about of being seen, feeling heard, and school being safe. So these things are all interconnected, as you've pointed out.
Director Swanson?
Yeah, one quick, since we're talking about liaisons, but I had a point on something else. My Caucasian children, who have both gone through middle school, love the Century student liaison, Philip, I believe his name is, who's awesome. So, yeah, and I think we've seen other studies too. I mean, there's certain states in South Louisiana, Mississippi, I mean, they're making huge strides just getting kids in school, you know, is one of the big things that they're doing through different administrators. I'm assuming our liaisons work on efforts like that. So yeah, I mean, I know there are some other things that we're probably not considering, which is your guys' job, fortunately, to put this together. I think one of the problems that I think Paul's probably having on the integration side is, I mean, there's a higher rate of discipline versus the, you know, exclusionary discipline aspect. And so, I mean, I think, and maybe it's the phrasing of it, what appears to be a disproportionate use of exclusionary discipline is probably what you're saying based on the higher rates, but we're not sure yet because we don't have the data, right?
Well, I would say the data does say that we are, like, any given black student in our district.
Can you go to the mic? Sorry, just to make sure we're capturing.
Any given black student in our district is more likely to miss school as a result of disciplinary action than any given white student, right? Based on these are log likelihoods, like from mathematically they're saying how much more likely is it that a student will be suspended. And so I think we can say that it is happening. The question from the data perspective is, to what degree? Is it worse than our numbers tell us? Is it better than our numbers tell us? Or are our numbers dead on? Are they telling us the whole story?
Because didn't we talk about last week, or 2 weeks ago, sorry, that we want to know, like, what's the action, what's the consequence?
Correct.
So then we can accurately analyze, okay, are there disproportionate consequences to the same action based on the race of the student, right? And we don't know that right now.
Right, and we don't, and I also think that it's important to note that it's, any principal will tell you that no decision to suspend a student is as simple as, like, this student hit this student, right? It's about what were the different points of escalation that led to that moment that might weigh into whether or not a student is suspended. Now, in the case of a physical assault, sure, the student's likely to be suspended, but there's a whole host of other reasons. And so the point is that it's pretty hard to say, strip away all of the context, and these two actions were the same thing, was one person suspended and another person not suspended. But as much as possible, that would be our goal.
Okay. And that's an effort you're going to undertake in the first year of the plan?
Yeah, as much as is feasible within the data that we collect.
Okay. And then, as you said, ideally, after you collect that data, we see, okay, there is more equal treatment than you're assuming in the plan statement here.
Yep.
And I guess that's the struggle. I mean, we can say the data appears to be saying one thing, but we don't know until we actually collect data and look at it.
Yeah, and I always say in something like this, where there's smoke, there's fire. Also, we can't absent ourselves from, like, there's, as our board member Baker noted, this is something that's widely studied and widely understood, including in the state of Minnesota. And so I don't think we're probably an exception to the rule. But if we were, I'd be like, great, how can we lead the state in telling the story of what we're doing that shows that we're an exception? I'm going to guess we're probably not an exception. And so then what can we do? There's a host of research-backed practices that we're not doing that we would love to support the district in taking up.
Director Anderson?
I just want to say I'm so grateful for our liaisons. So I know that we're having tough conversation at this table today in terms of their role, and they are so vital and important for our district. And so I just want to express my appreciation for them. Two, I want to just say that a number of years ago, I was meeting with someone in our elementary schools about this. So before I was on the board, because I was aware of some of this research, had some concerns about our students being treated differently based on behaviors and how our behavior is being addressed. And so back in that time, this staff member was talking to me about how the challenge was in this specific school. And it was very clear to me that behaviors are not recorded consistently and schools are doing very different things. And it's just a challenge within a school and it's a challenge within the district. And so I am so happy that the two of you are doing the work that you are doing, because I think you're right, the first place we start, and I know that we have tasked our superintendent with this, is bringing more consistency in systems across the district. And so if you know one school is doing something different than another school, there's no way to track the data in a meaningful way. And how you are starting this is so purposeful and thoughtful, and I just wanted to express my gratitude. Like, you are taking on a mission that is significant, and it achieves what the board has tasked our superintendent with doing. And so good job with hiring, Mr. Bauman, and I just am very appreciative of the work that you're doing. So I look forward to just getting the data that will give us a lot more information about the path forward. So thank you.
And relating to that, I just want to say one thing, because I don't want it to seem like we're saying something we're not. I don't think any of our building leadership are doing anything wrong or like hiding something. I think, for instance, when I went into the codes, there's so many of them that I want us to make sure that like if one school is using this code and another school is using this code for a similar type of behavior, that we're lining that up. So I don't want those who are listening in to think that we're saying, well, like some of the principals are doing a bad job, right? I want to stress, I think they're all doing a great job, and I want us to create better consistency.
I also don't want to suggest that. Yeah. Just more like when you have a system this big and
it is,
and you're doing the best you can. And I think some of what we have been looking for in many areas is just how does our system be more consistent, because then the data is more meaningful. So yes, I agree. Not trying to throw anyone or any school or anybody under the bus. Everybody's doing great, but we could do better.
To that end, and we can get there. There's a first and a second to approve the plan as presented. I think if there are further comments, if there are amendments to that motion, I think the board can entertain that. But the plan will not be altered without a motion to amend, right? So, Director Bryan, to that point, if you have further clarifying questions or if you want to see something different,
yeah, I think it would. And so back to what you said, I appreciate your knowledge, because I don't have that. I did not go to school, and you've got more smarts than in that space than I do. But I want to be mindful that we're not applying generalities into our district without knowing the data to validate this is what our district is like. And so when I read the integration objective or goal, where we are addressing the disproportionate use of exclusionary discipline, as I hear our conversation, as I hear what you're sharing with me, it tells me that we've got a problem in our schools. how I'm hearing is that we've got teachers and we've got principals that are not obliging and not following the process, or we are disproportionately applying these rules against them. That's how I'm hearing today. And so I want to be careful
Dr.
that
Thompson, to that point, that's what we're reporting to the state. We do have that problem.
right.
Correct?
But
So-
what this is saying and what I'm hearing is that we have no data to validate if this is true or not. So I guess it's more of if the integration goal can be maybe more reworded on understanding the current state assessment, validating the actions and the decisions that were made, because if the data is the data, but the data is backed up that these actions were taken because the student code of conduct was not followed, and it doesn't matter your race, then the data is the data. And so if the data is the data and people are not following the student code of conduct, then I don't know if changing the metrics to a lower number for one demographic just because they're a different race, and their student code of conduct is different from a different race, and that doesn't make sense. So I guess I want to make sure I understand the integration piece more. But so that's just my thought there. The school success liaisons, again, if you guys all have shared and said, and I agree with you that they play a huge part in our schools. But this $2 million is to improve the academic gap for those that are in the lower proficiency of reading and math. And so I just don't.
I think Director Adams.
Can I
Yeah, but it seemed like what you said might not be accurate. So I just want to, if you want to
No,
jump
you
in.
can go ahead and finish, and
Okay.
I'll.
Because I'm sharing my
So you're saying
opinion and
your
interpretation of what I'm
okay.
hearing so far.
Okay.
And so the school success liaisons, while they may not be, maybe you can't have a hard data point from what they do. That one could argue that's the same for high school advisors, student support specialists. But for our interventionalists, you can see the data to say, all right, we got a person's reading level in the fall of here, and we got them to here in spring. And so the dollars that we are going to invest drastically has, a relationship with that data metric improving. So I get where everyone's point of view is around, the integration and these folks, but I'd rather spend the $2 million to make sure these kids know how to read, they know how to do math, and so forth. So I will make a motion, because if that's what we want to do.
To amend the motion?
To amend the motion. I'd like to amend the motion to have an increase of our reading interventionalists with the liaison dollars. So.
Point of clarification from Superintendent and from the two of you. Is that even possible, given the constraints of the A&I parameters that the state sets out?
It is possible.
Okay.
We would have to look at we would have to go through a different needs assessment to look at that particular area and decide how we're going to address that particular integration goal. So I think we would have to give that some thought. Our timeline is limited. This is due March 15th. So that certainly is something that we could take a look at. So in theory, yes, but I do think it presents a whole different set of challenges.
And I would also just note that the school success liaisons function across the entire 3 types of goals that we are required by statute to address. You're speaking to one of the 3 types of goals, right? And interventionists, which we already are funding, right, are speaking to one of the goals, which is important. But I want to stress that if we're trying to recognize that there is a need that is beyond only the academic need that an interventionist might provide, that A&I, again, is not meant to be a teaching and learning plan. It's meant to be an achievement and integration plan, which has to apply dollars across the different needs. And so my hesitance to the request is simply, A, that we already have these phenomenal folks who every single building leader that I met with said is their number one priority. And they actually, I had multiple building leads say, can we hire more of them because our elementaries don't get very much time with the school success liaisons. But then I think also within that, recognizing that to do what you're describing would be to essentially focus what we are required by statute through the work that we do, which is to ensure that interventionists are hired if necessary or other forms of academic intervention are addressed. That's the responsibility of our district, and that is not solely the purpose of A&I dollars. And I did hear from some of our, like for instance, our middle school principals, that they're like, we would love to see A&I dollars hire an interventionist. And we said, yeah, if we can make that work, absolutely, we'll do that. And we actually thought we might be able to, but because of, for instance, the increasing cost of benefits, the dollars didn't go as far as we thought they would.
Will you, Director Thompson, will you restate your motion, your amended motion?
Yeah. Can I share? All right. So yes, the achievement, so the three goals, achievement, integration, and teacher equity. The integration goal had no school success liaison in that. They're not, because you said there was $0.
Not true. They're listed as one of the strategies.
As one of the strategies.
Yep.
Because are they going to be reviewing case studies? Are they going to be reviewing?
No, but they're involved in student discipline all the time.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And so then, and the achievement is just lowering the gap between Hispanic students and white students from 5.3% across grade levels. And that's the only goal in achievement. So I don't know how school success liaisons would do that. But I'll restate my motion. And I think my motion, I think we've got.
So your motion is to amend the first motion.
I make a motion to amend the A&I plan to reallocate $620,000 to increase the reading interventionalists and the EL coordinators. I just want to make sure I understand that. Those are the English learning, like they work with those students. I just want to make sure I understand that one.
Those are currently positions that do not exist, but our data indicates that we have tremendous area of growth and improvement among our multilingual learners.
Yep.
So we are looking to bring aboard 2 coaches, one for elementary, one for secondary, to provide instructional support for our core content area teachers and our ELD teachers.
Got it. And so those are instructional support, and they're not actually teaching the students.
Correct.
So, Director Thompson, can we, because I feel like I'm already losing it in terms of structure here around Robert's rules, so I fully own that.
Okay,
You've
so let me
amended
restate my motion.
You've amended the motion to approve the A&I plan to reallocate $620,000 from where to where?
From the liaisons to reading interventionalists.
From liaisons to reading interventionists.
Yes.
Is there a second to amend this motion, or to amend, to accept, is there a second on the amended motion?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Seconded by Director Carbone. Any discussion on the amended motion? Director Thompson.
Yeah, so again, as I'm looking at the A&I plan, 3 goals: achievement, integration, as well as teacher equity. We've got teacher equity, which is going to be a development and implementation of district-wide equity framework. I'm assuming someone else is doing that? You're doing that? Awesome. Integration, we've got someone's going to look at the data first to validate. Is the data? Okay. So then if it's you guys, then that gives us the flexibility to use the funding to ensure we've got boots on the ground talking and teaching teaching the kids between 2nd grade and 5th grade, wherever they are at, and for those that are in the lowest in proficiency, and if we're going to use generalities, right? Like the Latinos are, if that's what I'm reading in the achievement paragraph. So, right?
I'd like to point out something about the goal. The goal is we are required to develop an academic goal that is specific to a particular group of students. In the past, it was stated as students of color, but that's incredibly difficult to measure how you're having success. So this year, our proposal is that the goal focuses on Latino and Hispanic students because that is where our widest gap exists. So by closing that gap, you're in theory closing the gap for all of our groups. That does not mean that resources are only allocated for the purpose of improving reading scores for Latino and Hispanic students. So regardless of what we do, the goal is different from the strategies. The strategies can be applied to any and all students.
Yep.
Can you discuss briefly how the ANI plan supports the metrics framework dashboard that the board has passed? Like, why do you think this plan will support the goals outlined by increasing FastBridge scores, increasing MCA scores, et cetera? And then in the second page of the plan, you talk about, or the plan requires you to talk about 3 groups: the Multi-District Collaboration Council, the Community Collaboration Council, and the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee. How have those 3 groups interacted with the development of this plan to date?
Where do you want to start? You can go ahead and I'll jump in.
Can you repeat your first question? The goal, the goals, the metrics?
I'm curious, like, given the district's goals and the board's passage of the metrics framework, the dashboard, I see direct ties to this plan in achieving the board's stated goals. But I'm curious, from your perspective, how does that fit?
Yeah, well, I think one area that jumps to mind, and this is an example, is we know that we're looking at our FastBridge scores as leading indicators and our MCA scores as lagging indicators. We are currently in the process of breaking down our FastBridge data by demographic groups and looking to see where are we seeing areas for improvement, for growth, and it's very clear that our multilingual learners definitely need an increased support. So this particular plan is directly trying to support that with resources that do not currently exist. This is a very rough projection, but if we were to really address strategies for multilingual learners across all classrooms, we predict we'd see a pretty significant increase in their reading scores because we really are lacking in language acquisition skills for those students right now and the resources to do that.
The other thing I'll add, because they've been brought up many times, is I see direct ties, for instance, between reading scores and the school success liaisons, because, for instance, the school success liaisons are often the very first line of contact if we have a student who's habitually absent, right? If a student's not in school, they can't improve their reading scores very readily. Maybe they will. That would be some incredible luck if they were reading a bunch at home. But for instance, when the office calls some of our families, they don't pick up the phone. When the liaison calls, they pick up the phone, right? Then we can figure out, okay, well, what's going on? Why is the student not here? So the countless calls, which they log, so if you wanted, quote unquote, hard data, I could say, yeah, we had 627 parent contacts in the last semester or whatever it might be. But the point is, those types of contacts have a direct relationship to whether or not a student is in school and learning. Similarly, if a student is having a really, really hard time and they don't have a relationship with a counselor, but they do have a relationship with a school success liaison, by telling the school success liaison, we can get the student the supports they need so that then they can be in class learning, right?
Great. Director Baker.
I guess my problem with this motion is that I don't see the school success liaisons as like an extra role. I see them as vital in the whole outcome of the plan. When I think about what they offer, they improve the family-school communication, they're supporting attendance, they're helping families navigate systems that are difficult and unfamiliar and complex. They help reduce like behavior escalation. So when I think about all these different supports, they're addressing inequities that would negatively impact academics. So whether or not they're academic interventionists, the things that they do, all those extra supports that they provide, help with academics. So I guess like I don't even understand why we're having this discussion of removing the success liaisons or whatever. Like I just think that it's such a vital part of the plan. I can't even imagine how it would be successful without them.
Director Thompson?
So I want to make sure I reiterate that the school success liaisons, 100% agree. There is value, but I don't know if the budget of the A&I plan should be the one paying for that. If we need to find $620,000 out of the next school year's budget, then we can do that. But if we're going to use the A&I plan designed for academic achievement in the diverse population, like wouldn't we want to make sure these kids know how to read and do math? Like that should be the first priority, and that's my point of view. And we don't need to. I mean, we can have a variety of different interventionalists. I mean, I think we can we hire more ESLs that could help versus versus not. So that like we have more dollars to make sure that there is a person teaching a student how to read versus the other roles. So,
Director Anderson?
You were before me.
Oh, no, you went, okay, sorry. Director Swanson?
Two things, just real quick. One, so the board's looking to approve this plan, which would then be submitted to the state for approval? Okay, so this draft hasn't been submitted to the state for pre-approval? Okay. And then maybe it goes without saying, but this is the plan that you guys have created that you think will accomplish the goals that are set out and you guys want to achieve, correct?
Correct.
And
Yeah,
you
but it's
have the
not-
discretion.
It's a redo on the plan.
Yeah.
We're trying to redirect. Teaching and learning, the first fundamental is setting the conditions with our families and our students, and our success liaisons are fundamental because we don't have all the other supports in the system. I think our principals and our system would be unserved, and that the supplanting of it from A&I to general fund, I think that the intervention problem that we have in this school system is ubiquitous and beyond this problem. That what I've been trying to do and the work that this team has done is to reset and redirect our efforts, but to make sure that the undergirding fundamental capacity that our success liaisons help us create, and by us I mean our building leaders, our teaching and learning program, this is vital. If I take $620,000 out of the general fund to cover success liaisons and $620,000 out of A&I to do integration direct, or intervention, excuse me, is, to me, that's just swapping where it's coming from. We have an intervention shortfall problem in our academic system that I would like to get clarified and resolved. The resolution to that long-term is more likely to be an operating levy or a redirection of general fund dollars on scale to get that done. So I just like to say those things. I think our success liaisons are incredibly valuable. I know you're saying that, Director Thompson. I'm not pushing back on that. How we fund it and how we redirect our A&I plan, we've done some careful research on this. I think the issue that was brought up around our concerns around our reporting for behavior are valid, in that we have a calibration issue across the system and we have to deal with that, and they've identified that, and we have an action plan to improve that. So I just want to say those few things about this. I want the intervention solution to be broader, and as you said multiple times, Director Thompson, for all our kids. So I'll just say that.
Director Anderson?
I just wanted to thank you both. I feel like you are speaking so fluidly about these things. Your expertise is top-notch. I really support the plan. I thank you for all the time and effort that went into it. So, thank you.
With that, there's a motion and a second on the floor to amend the presented plan to move $620,000 from school success liaisons to a reading interventionist position. All in favor, we'll do a roll call vote. All in favor, or sorry, Kim, could you call roll call if you're in favor, or please vote. Please vote yay or nay. Sorry, please vote yay or nay on the amended motion.
The amended motion, okay.
Yeah. And this is just on the
Just
amendment.
just on the amended motion to move $620,000 from school success liaisons to reading interventionists.
Paul Carbone,
Yay.
Kim Baker,
No.
Carly Anderson,
No.
Amber Cameron,
No.
Tony Reichenberger,
No.
Brian Thompson,
Yes.
Matt Swanson.
No.
Okay, the amended motion fails. With that, we're back to the original motion to approve the achievement and integration plan. Any further discussion on the plan before moving to vote?
I have a,
Go. Director Swanson?
I mean, I think it goes back to one of Brian's comments and something I said earlier. With my concern, I mean, I think we can say, you know, as a plan, because this will be published, right? I'm assuming this will be on our website, where you can say that students of color are disproportionately suspended or something like, you know, along those lines at a higher rate, you know, proportionate to their population in the school. I think the challenge is when we're making a statement, or where, I shouldn't say the challenge, but where I struggle, is when we're making a statement. And here, let me pull it back up so I'm not.
Is it the term exclusionary discipline that you were having a hard time with? Am I understanding?
It is,
Okay.
you know, when the next paragraph we're saying, but we're going to collect some data because it might not be accurate, you know, because it could be true that they're disproportionately being suspended based on their percent of the population in the school, but we just don't know why, right?
So I should clarify, the term exclusionary discipline is a categorical term that's used by the state and the federal government, referring to discipline that leads to a student being missing instructional time. It's called exclusionary discipline because they're excluded from instructional time. So it's not a term we're using that's meant to be loaded with any sort of value. It's a categorical term that is not ours. It's one that's used by the state and the feds. And so when we're saying exclusionary discipline, the reason we said that instead of suspension is partially because of the exact issue that we're describing. If we say suspension, but we're not coding things as suspension, then we're not able to necessarily address it. Versus if we can say, we're trying to look at all of the different forms of discipline that lead to a student missing class time, missing instructional time, then by using that umbrella term, it gives us more leeway to try to figure out how to address the problem, if that makes sense. Does that speak at all to the concern that you're having?
Yeah, I guess my point, I mean, I get what you're saying, and I love the second paragraph, you know, that you're going to really nail down on the data to make sure that we're really accurately showing what's happening, right? My concern, you know, is on the first paragraph, because it reads, when I read it, as if there's a bias built into the system, which maybe there is, right? But I don't know that we have the data, that there's a bias right now that teachers or administrators are exerting increased discipline on one race over another. And I don't know if that's what it's saying or intended to say.
I mean, I would say that the data that is published says we have a bias, right? That if a student is significantly more likely to be suspended than a comparable peer, then the data that is published says there is a bias. Now, what we are proposing is we get to the root of what is that, right? What is happening?
What data is that, I guess?
Well, it's the data that we report every year to the Office of Civil Rights from the
I think
federal.
that's the part that's missing here, is that the district, I don't know for how many years, but has been reporting that we have an issue.
But
It's not great.
But the question is, if it's just the rate, the rate is disproportionate just based on the population.
Correct.
But that's just one data point. It's not the why. It's the what.
Of course.
But it's not the why. And that's what you want to get at, is the why, but I feel like we're already presupposing the why onto the data set in this plan.
Well, I would argue that what we are presupposing is that the reasons for this are complex, some of which is bias, right? Undoubtedly.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that bias doesn't exist, but I just don't want to presuppose it because I don't know. Do we know yet, right?
Well, and I would say as an expert in this field, I do know. Like I can say very confidently that there is bias in the system. Now, my question is, to what degree is that bias something that we can address at the classroom level? Versus maybe it's not a classroom level bias. Maybe it's in the way that we set up our structures once a student is, say, sent out of a classroom. What is the nature of the bias? I don't know, but I can say there is bias, right? And I feel very, very confident in saying that based on the fact that we are not an exception to the rule, and this has been studied at length to show that bias is prevalent and common in school systems in this way. That simply put, there's a host of studies that will tell you that for the nearly identical behavior, a black student is more likely to receive a more serious punishment than a white student. And so I would say maybe we're doing better, I'm not sure. And actually, compared to some of our peer districts, our rates look better. So I want to know what the nature of the problem is so that then we can say, okay, well, here's the kinds of interventions. Because we hear teachers all the time telling us, we want more resources on this. We know that it's happening in our school, but we feel like we don't have the tools. And we're like, okay, well, let's get to the bottom of the issue so that we can then provide you with the tools, right? Like we have free resources from the state through the Office of Non-Exclusionary Discipline and the Office of Restorative Practices at MDE that will provide us with training. But we need to figure out, well, do certain teachers need training and other teachers not? Do all of our teachers need something, or is it all of our admin need something? Like, what is the issue?
Director Thompson?
Yeah, I think if I'm tracking with what you're trying to say is like, here's the data, but the bias is you're interpreting that because it's high, we must be bad, and so that's how I'm reading it. But versus here's the data is just the data, and like, all right, blank percent is blank percent. Let's go find out why. Versus inherently assuming that we're doing something wrong. And so that's how I'm hearing this conversation going. So if you think that we're doing something wrong, let's just call a spade a spade. Do you think we're doing something wrong?
I think we likely are, and that we also can improve our
I'm going to jump in here.
practices.
So this is the sentence I think we're all talking about. Initial data exploration, so the data that we've been reporting, correct, indicates that Black, African American, Latino, and multiracial students are many times more likely than white students to face exclusionary discipline in ISD 194.
That's true.
That is a true statement. So there is no statement that we're bad or why this is happening, but it says that data collection and recording practices are not consistent from site to site, what makes it difficult to understand the baseline data and scope of the issue. And then it goes into talk about, we're going to explore why are our numbers, why do the numbers exist like they do? That's all it says, is that we're reporting higher rates of exclusionary disciplinary practices for some students groups than others. And there's no judgment or value placed on why that's happening necessarily. And I think the board is jumping to a conclusion here that it's bad, right?
Well, I think it's because it's being presented that way, and you literally just said you think we're doing something wrong.
Director Thompson, can I ask,
am I mistaken?
How is it being presented that way? Like the sentence I just read said, this is what the data says.
To
answer your question, because my default is to assume that the problem is not with individual students, the problem is with the system that we can address and control, right? Because if we place the problem with an individual student, we're saying that student is bad, that student is wrong. As opposed to, can we create better interventions that serve that student so that they do not end up in a situation where they miss school because they had a blow up in a classroom, right? And so the difference here is about, I am saying there is an issue in our system, which undoubtedly there is. It's pointed to in our data. It's pointed to in the research literature. It's pointed to in conversations I have with our teachers and with our principals all throughout the district. The question is, I am not going to land in a place where I say if a student violated the student code of conduct, the data is the data. because it's, as I said earlier, if you ask any principal, it's never actually that simple. It's about a series of things that lead to the point at which a student is then suspended, right? And so we're saying, well, what are the points of intervention that we can back up to that as a system we can control? Because there's a host of things that we can always do better. I would say that on any metric where we could do better, it's because we can do better. There is a problem with us as a system. And it's not lying with an individual kid who's showing up to learn and maybe is super duper hungry that day and so they're grumpy, or showed up to learn and had a really, really hard experience outside of school and so they're reactive, whatever it might be. The question for me is, how do we prepare our teachers? How do we prepare our folks who are interacting with them in the hallways better so that we can better meet the needs of those individual students? It's about where we place the responsibility for addressing the problem.
Director Swanson?
I appreciate the back and forth. I really do. And I look forward to seeing how this turns out. The data, once you guys start collecting it. Look forward to hearing about this in
Hopefully a year. Yeah. We can come back and present what we found.
Because then I think we can have even a fuller discussion. So then we'll know, okay, now we've been tracking it with your expertise and analysis. So, yeah.
Any other points of discussion? Okay. I believe going back to the motion to approve, it was first by Baker, second by Anderson. Is that correct? So we'll move to a vote. Because we did the other one, roll call, let's do this as roll call as well.
Kim Baker,
Yes.
Carly Anderson,
Yes.
Amber Cameron.
Yes.
Matt Swanson.
Yes.
Tony Reichenberger,
Yes.
Paul Carbone,
No.
Brian Thompson.
No.
Okay, great. Motion passes 5-2. Thank you both.
Yeah. And if I could just say one more thing real quick before we go, I imagine that our liaisons and some of our families who have really trusted liaisons with, or trusted relationships with our liaisons might have heard tonight. I just want to say that we see you, we appreciate you, and there are many, many folks here who are rooting for you and appreciate the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. All right. With that, I'd like to invite Director Bill Holmgren up. Are you joining him, Jack, or no? No, okay. Just Director Holmgren to go over fiscal year 26 revised budget, which we also went through in detail at the work session, but I think you have a kind of a summary report for tonight, correct? And then you are asking us to...
an overview of what we talked about last.
Right, and you're looking for us to consider approval of the revised budget tonight,
Yes, I
correct?
am.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. We're going to take a couple minutes, though. I want to do a update on the current budget and how it's performing, and then we'll talk about the revised budget. Now, what we did, we tried to put some more information on this slide that includes numbers. So when we look right now, what's happening with our budget in the general fund by object. So now on the top, you can see what we talked about before. This is how much we've spent to date from last July 1st till now out of the budget. The first two lines are actual spend. The blue line is the budget. So you can see that right now, when you look at our salaries and wages, we have spent 43.3% of that budget compared to spending 45.2% of the total spend last year. Now, on the bottom side, you'll see now the black line is the actual budget for the salaries and wages at $110 million. And you can see that we've spent $47.6 million to date. And so I'm hoping that helps with everyone who wanted to see some of the numbers. You can see as we go forward, our budget gets smaller and smaller. Of course, we're a people business, right? So our salaries and wages and benefits by far are the largest portion of our budget. So you can see here, though. So at this point, you can see that our budget is performing in the way it should. We see a couple small areas that are showing a little higher, and I just want to point out what those are. So when you look at our supplies and materials, you see that blue line is up there at 78.9%. I want to point out that the budget for this year is actually smaller than last year. And at the same time, what this is curriculum that we bought earlier in the year than we have in the past. So that's why it's higher. We don't expect this to be over budget at the end of the year, but we have spent more to date. The second piece I want to point out, I'm sorry, that was the purchase services. Now the supplies and materials. You look at that one, small bump up too, and that's tuition for our special ed students. We got more tuition going out than we have in the past, and that's why you're seeing a bump on the purchase services portion of this slide. So with that said, if we go over to the right a little farther, then we put the total together. So you can see that to date, we've spent 44.5 of our total budget compared to 45.1% last year. And I'm hoping this helps a little bit in explaining our budget. We switch over to the program side. We've done this the same way, so you can see where the budgets are with the black lines, with the numbers with it. So you can see our elementary, of course, elementary and secondary education, by far our biggest portion of our budget, is $87.7 million. And you see at this point in time, the blue line above it is a little below where we were last year. That's mainly because we've just settled the contract and we haven't paid out the retro. We expect it to be right even with the year before. That piece in the middle where you see in 105% under community education, that's unemployment that we've had to pay out. This is 100% reimbursed, but we have spent more than we anticipated by about $3,000. Very small amount, but it shows big on the percentage. The second one under pupil support, you see a small bump there, a little higher at 48% over the 46. That's transportation costs. Our transportation costs running a little higher than we anticipated this particular year. With that said, is there any questions on any of that? Okay. Now we're going to move on to the revised budget. So just to give you an overview, if you want to see more years, you can turn to page 10 on the report that we put on your desk, where it shows 5 years. This is just showing fiscal 25 to fiscal 26. So our state sources for the year are expecting to go up $5.7 million. Yeah, that's 4.1% more than we got in state sources the year before. And what this is coming from is a 2.75 increase in our formula allowance from the state of Minnesota and increased enrollment. That's driving those numbers. Property taxes, we've talked about this number for quite a while, where in the past, when we saw those huge increases in our enrollment running at 3%, we have to estimate that 2 years before we actually levy those dollars. So when the enrollment slowed way down, well, now we can't have those funds because we don't have those students. So in a sense, we're giving that money back to the community. Okay, but so we have a one-time $2 million decrease in our property taxes. And we've talked about that for a long time, but it's substantial. It's $2 million. That's 1% of our budget. We look at our federal sources, very, very small change. Again, that's 100% reimbursed by the federal government. So even though we have a little more here, we're actually spending the same amount. Our local revenue is up a little bit, $162,000. That's mainly because of interest earnings. Now that we have a fund balance, we actually have some earnings on those funds.
So thank you for this. Can we, as a suggestion for the next time around, I appreciate seeing the fiscal year 25 actuals, so year over year makes sense. But I think for me it would be super impactful if, where did we start off with at the budget? So we had, what did we approve back in June, and is the revised budget different, more or less? That way, then I've got a little better gauge of, do we spend more money, do we not spend more money, versus here's the new revised budget, and I'm like, oh, well, did we get an extra $2 million, or are we spending an extra $5 million, and I have no idea what it is? So that's just a suggestion for the next round. Thank you.
Thanks. Go ahead.
So noted. Got it. An overall statement, our revenue is practically the same number as it was in June, and our expenditures are practically the same number. But now that we know exactly who we've hired in every single different area, in every single program area, our numbers are much harder. We expect them to come out where we're at. Okay? Small change, but I understand your point. Okay. Here's just so you have a picture of where the money actually comes from. So our property taxes are about 25% of our budget. I think a lot of people believe that most of the money that comes in the state, comes into our district is from property taxes. It's actually only about 25%. The rest of it comes from the state of Minnesota. We have a little bit of local dollars that we get collected, for different activities and so forth, but those are pretty small compared to the rest. When we're looking at now expenditure by object, we just talked about that a minute ago, but our salaries and wages for fiscal 26 going to be up $6 million from the year before. It's coming from two areas. Number one, increases to all of our employees, COLA increases. Second piece is just more employees. As you know, we've added some deans, we've added some counselors, we've actually added some new teachers. So besides just the increase for all of our employees, we actually have quite a few new staff on staff this year. Well, sorry, I got ahead of myself. Sorry. There we go. Employee benefits. You see, actually, that's up a little higher than what the salary is. And a big piece of this is our health insurance. And what's happening every year after year after year, we have many employees bring their spouses onto our plan because it's a much better deal than they get somewhere else. And that's just the truth of it. We're spending much more dollars on our family plans that used to be singles in the past. So it's certainly costing us some money in the long run. Purchase services. Again, you can see these on page 11.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, thank you. Bill, one quick question on the employee benefits. At the last meeting, you mentioned that there was a swell of claims that came in and inflated it by, I think it was 4 or 5 million, whatever it was. Are we seeing a plateauing of that or a dipping of that, or is it is the wave still, tsunami still coming in?
The wave happened during the summer.
Okay.
The way that it's behaving right now through the fall and into the winter is the same as it was the year before.
Okay.
We're seeing about a 1.7 increase from the year before, but we don't know what's going to happen in the summer.
Sure. Okay.
Well, another thing I didn't mention, when we look at the benefit increase, another piece that's there is the new Minnesota leave that we've got to pay for. That started in January, so that is a new cost to the district, as along with all of our employees paying those prices. Okay, our purchase services, 2%. I think that's pretty standard. We expect that to go up about 2% on a yearly basis. Our supplies and materials, again, up that 17.2%. These again are our curriculum coming in sooner, and we're spending a lot more money on curriculum than we have the last couple of years, which has been planned. Actually, Sandy is here. Has been planned for a long time, and now we are spending that money. So that's why you're seeing an increase there under our supplies and materials. Okay, to move on to the program areas. Again, the administration, you're seeing a decrease. Two real reasons. Number one, last year, remember, we paid for more than one superintendent. Okay, so now we're not, so it's down. We also, there's some reorganization in the executive directors. So some money has come out of that area, gone into different areas, depending on what they do. So that's why you're seeing that decrease under administration. District support services, you're seeing there, again, some of these new people that are working are sitting there. So that's why you're seeing that 17.1% increase in our district support services. When we look at our elementary and secondary education, again, 3.3%. When you look at the average person with the increase that they get on their salaries, we're looking at 2.5, pushing 3. So the extra is the new teachers that have been put on. Special education, we do have new staff in this area. That's why we're seeing a more than a 3.3 increase in our special ed staffing. Community education, remember, this is an unemployment piece that runs through the general fund now. That's 100% reimbursed, at least at this point. So it looks like a huge increase there, but it's $10,000. Okay. Instructional support services. Here's where you're seeing the increases. That's where the new deans fit. Okay, so we're seeing a large increase in our instructional support. Pupil support services, you're seeing a larger increase there of 8.6. That's transportation, and that's the new counselors that we put in place at the high schools. Our sites and buildings at 5.5, that just continues to be The LTFM is driving that fund, those funds. And the fix and fix program there, that's all insurance, liability insurance. The market rate on that going up is around 9 to 10%. So I'm feeling good at 6.8. So overall, we see a 6.6% increase in our expenditures for fiscal '26. Again, just to give you an idea where that money is going, that overall, we got almost 82% directly serving our students of the funds that we have. You look at that administration cost of 2.14, that's actually very low. I think we're very lean in that area. Many districts have run close to 4%. Okay, fund balances. That's on page 12 of your book if you're interested. But really what's happening here, you see that our fund balance is going up by 1.7 million, but our key on the unassigned area where it's going up 3.6. And that's where we're pushing up to the 8.3% in our unassigned fund balance. But some of our assigned dollars will be going down this year because they've been assigned and now we're gonna spend it. But you'll see that the unassigned is increasing, even though the total overall isn't increasing by that much.
Director Thompson?
Hey, we probably need to acknowledge this. This is fantastic. Like we have over the past 3 years have been trying to reestablish our unassigned fund balance since COVID, and from $211,000 to getting it to 8.3% where it's at. That's fantastic, and thank you for that. I know that as a district, our goal was to get to 10%, and that's kind of where the steady state would be. When we get down to roughly 7.5, a trigger gets warned. But sitting in between 8.5 and 10, that makes us feel, makes me feel a lot more comfortable and at ease. While it is not a massive amount of number, I mean, yeah, let me rephrase that. It is. I mean, 17.6 is a lot of number, a lot. But that is the equivalent of right now only 2.5 months of reserves, meaning that if we don't get any revenue, we can only survive for 75 days, and that's it. And so ideally, we may want to have more in our fund balance.
75 days under current condition without any adjustment to the budget.
Correct. Yes, under the current conditions. The assigned balance dropped to 2.1. Are we envisioning what those dollars were for this year would be needing to be spent next year so that it goes into the general fund?
It's a one-time cost.
Okay.
So we will not see that happen again.
Got it. And so this, when I see this, and hopefully the meetings in the upcoming weeks with Moody, they'll see a positive trend. They'll see a much healthier fund balance than what we had in the past. And so fantastic for getting us to where we are today.
So here's our travel, our history here. So we have made progress. The fund balance has definitely improved from where we were just a couple years ago. I just want to take a couple minutes to run through these other funds. Again, Student Nutrition Fund. You see here we have a change in fund balance going down about 317. That is planned. We are buying a lot of equipment because we're trying to get that fund balance down to within that 3-month period. But even after this, we still have a couple $100,000 more that we're going to have too much funded. At this point, there's no penalty, but I expect that eventually to come around.
What do you do with that? I mean, you've got $3.5 million in the savings account for lunch.
Yeah. Well, it can only be used for student nutrition. There's no way that we can move that to any other fund in the district.
And when we buy food, is it through a particular vendor, and that's the only one we can go through? There's no other vendor options, or just?
Oh no, most of the time that's shopped around. They do a very good job finding the lowest cost food they can find.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just pick one and buy. It's a process.
Okay. Director Swanson?
Bill, I know we were able to use it for equipment in the past. Do you think that's going to be an option in the future?
I think it'd only be an option if most schools have excess funds there.
Okay.
They haven't said anything new since last year. So at this point, we can't use it for those cafeteria tables and stuff like we were using. So now it's back to just buying equipment in the kitchens, not in the cafeterias. Okay. Excuse me. The Community Education Fund, their fund balance dropped out when they lost all their revenue during the pandemic. They've been working to bring it back. We had it come back a little bit. Now it's been kind of stagnant over the last couple of years. But at this point, they have a balanced budget, looking at improving the balance by about $30,000. At the same time, I think they're pretty conservative. I think it'll be more than 30. I'm hoping we get back above zero. Okay, debt service. No, sorry, we'll go building fund first. Here, you'll see that this fund balance is going up, but mainly because we're going to sell bonds in a month of $20.6 million. So about, we spend about, out of this fund, 10 to 11 million in LTFM funds on a yearly basis. And this is the same fund, though, if the bond passes, that's where that money is going to go to for the projects for the middle schools. Debt service fund, this continues to grow a little bit. As you know, this past year, we actually did under levy by over $1 million to give those funds back. I expect that to happen again this next year, probably a little higher rate than the $1 million. Remember here, the reason that it kind of grows is that the state of Minnesota allows us to levy 105%, just in case people don't pay their taxes, and then we would be short and not be able to make our bond payments. But eventually, that extra 5% gets to be too much, and we give it back. Agency and trust is mainly our scholarship fund. What these are in this fund particularly are funds that have been given to us over the year by different families where they want the principal to stay there and only use the earnings, the interest earnings, to use for kids for scholarships. So then that seed money stays there for years to come. Here's where the insurance, our self-funded insurance, we're expecting this by the end of the year at this point to be negative by about $500,000. We'll watch this very closely. We are having a meeting, I believe next week, where we have our new bids come in off of our the different firms that we've been working with to see if we can get some better rates that way too. But we'll know a lot more here in a month on this fund.
Sorry, Chair Cameron, sorry. Can we go back to the internal service? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for this. I want to make sure that I understand this again. So you shared earlier that we were on track for what we spent last year with a positive 1.9%. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, for the beginning of the year. What we did is when we looked at the expenditures, we went back and did a weighted average over 5 years to really look at, not thinking it's going to be over $37 million again, but I could be wrong. We certainly could be, right?
But based on what we're spending right now, is that on pace of not last year? No, I mean last year as well as the year before. So like where there's incremental spend, but we just don't know if there's going to be a significant surplus of spend over the summer. But as it sits right now, if all things were equal and we didn't have a summer claims that come through the fiscal year 2024, we could be probably in the $30 million if nothing happens. I mean, that's just
That's correct.
But that's just what the data
But at the same
says.
time, I want to be conservative, right?
Yeah,
I
'cause
don't
this is
want
what
to
we
say it's
spent.
going to be, it's all rosy, because it might not be.
Right.
So that's why we use the 5-year weighted average to come up with the 36.
So let me play this out. So then, if it's $30 million is what our insurance claim spend is, then that's a $5,000, $5 million savings, and so instead of being $500,000 in the negatives, we'd be a positive 4.5. And so then with the upcoming claim, the upcoming premium insurance that is coming in for the July cycle, that could further accelerate the savings account of the fund balance for the health insurance fund balance, with the assumption if we stayed the same in annual spend, meaning that potentially the following year we could have a recalibrated premium for our staff if that plays out.
Yeah, we
Does that
look
make
at
sense?
that. We look at that every year. I mean, we have to make sure that we have funds available to make the claims.
Yep.
But we don't want it. We're not going to overcharge people on purpose, right?
Right. I mean, healthcare is healthcare, and if they need it, they need it. But I just want to make sure that if last year was just an anomaly of $35 million, and we just do $30 million again this year, we we were not spending an extra $4.5 million that we anticipated, which then bolsters our internal service fund. And because we already have the health insurance premiums locked in for next year, we can't adjust that right away, I'm assuming. And
Well,
so-
actually, next year, we're not locked in. That's why we're looking at the bids right now from the different insurance companies.
For July, we're not locked in.
No.
Okay.
No, we'll make those decisions late March through the insurance committee and bring a recommendation back to the board of what we think that increase should be.
Okay.
The estimate at this point, because of what happened, is at 15%. So it's a considerable increase in rates.
And we ideally want to be, what, $10 million in the savings account here?
Yeah, we do.
And we're in negative 450,000, 481,000, right? Well, that's a forecast.
Yeah.
Assuming if we do what we did last year. Okay.
That's correct.
And there's nothing we can do. I mean, other than it just has to play it out. And so how do we cover the $481,000 shortfall? Who pays? We pay for that.
Talking with our auditors, we're actually allowed to borrow against the general fund. So we don't have to just cover it. We can borrow the money to the fund, and when it recovers, we get the money back. So we don't have to just write a check and fill the hole.
Okay. So how do we borrow? I mean, can you walk me through that one more time?
So bills, we get premiums paid, correct? We can bring the balance back up.
If we get to the end of this particular year, right, we get to June 30th, and we have a negative number in this fund. We can borrow money from a general fund to cover that shortage temporarily. And when the funds come back, then we just pay the general fund back again. So we don't have to just cover the dollars with a check from the general fund.
And the funds would come back from the whatever percent you set in March.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so, okay.
How do we get? I'm sorry. Like, who do you borrow the money?
I mean, it's not a
From our
loan.
general
You're just,
fund.
Like,
yeah.
just borrow against ourselves?
Yes,
Yeah.
Oh,
correct.
all right. It's like, all right.
Yes.
All right. It's funny money. Then kind of.
We're going to think positive and land positive for that, but I told Bill we're going to paint as conservative and honest a picture as we can, and make sure that we continue to tell this story as it develops.
Great. You have another question?
And yeah,
Dr.
no, just
Barker?
one more comment. It's like, hey, this is healthcare again, and I want to make sure I'm on the record. Like, we want our staff to be healthy. So if they got to go, they got to go and take care of themselves. But we also just need to recognize here are the financial implications, and we just need to plan around it. That's all.
Yep. So here's just a summary of all the funds. You can see what's happening here. So our projected balances at the end of this year, we're expecting our total fund balance on general fund to be at 27 million, down so we have a total of almost $60 million in our total funds. Again, the unassigned number is at 17.6 at that 8.3%. So this is a general statement. The overall health of the school district financial health has improved. We're looking at that. The unassigned fund balance have moved to that 8.3% amount, which we're very happy about. Again, like I mentioned earlier, the student nutrition needs to decrease to 3 months of yearly, so it needs to be at 3.3 million. At the fund balance, you remember, was about 3.5. So getting very close. And of course, the internal service fund, we're watching that very closely, but we'll have to make some adjustments to make sure we build that fund balance back.
Thanks, Bill.
So any questions with any of that?
Are there any further questions? Director Thompson?
Yeah, less of a question, but just more of a comment. I'm just looking at your very last slide. I think it's the Lakeville area schools ranking against other school districts. I don't think you have that slide up here, but I think that's always good to share. We are the 9th largest school district in the state with 11,916 students on the books, beating Mounds View, who is now 10th, which we were 10th, I think, last year. Two things I do want to call out is our revenues. While we generate, 17.5 per ADM and comparable to the schools above, but more importantly, it's our per expenditures ADM, and we are amongst the lowest. So our ranking in regards to expenditures is we're the 20th least expensive in how we manage our operations. And so when we think about the staffing that we have, the how the money is being spent, and the additional resources and things that we want to consider. We're not spending like the 19 other schools, but yet we are the 9th largest school in our school in the state. And so there is an opportunity where we may want to have further discussions on how do we bolster, the revenue that comes in so that we can have the right resource mix and allocation so that we can take care of our students and our staff. So again, we are the 9th largest school.
Yeah, great.
So.
All right, thanks, Director Holmgren. With that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the revised fiscal year 26 budget as presented.
So moved.
First by Reichenberger, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Carbone, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the budget
Thank you.
passes. Thank you, Bill. All right, with that, I'll invite Director Albrecht up to discuss the approval of the tentative agreement with Education Minnesota Lakeville.
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chair, Superintendent Bauman, and members of the school board. You have before you this evening a tentative agreement with EML, who is our teachers union, for a contract settlement for the years 2025 through 2027. Highlights of the settlement include a 2% salary increase in year 1 of the contract and a 2.05% increase on the salary schedule year 2 of the contract. A one-time increase to health insurance contributions year 2 of the contract. A 2.05 increase to Schedule C and D year 2 of the contract, and integration of the Small Wonders contract into the EML contract. This also includes wage increases both year 1 and year 2 for Small Wonders. The tentative agreement has been ratified by EML, and the settlement is within school board established parameters and is recommended for approval.
Great, thanks, Director Albrecht. So tonight, we're here to approve or consider approval of the TA. Is there a motion to approve the TA?
So moved.
Seconded.
First by Anderson, second by Reckenberger. Any discussion? Yeah, Director Thompson.
Yeah, so I just want to first call out and thank the administration, the teachers union representatives to have these conversations and getting us to where we are at. I know that there was a lot of conversations, a lot of dialogue, so I just want to say thank you for that. I did, so the overview of the contract, and I shared this 2 years ago when we approved that the contract back then during the kind of I think it was a really challenging economic time 2 years ago with where we were at as a nation, and also in the economically. The things that I saw. So let me just make sure I'm on the same page. The 2% increase, is that 2% increase at each individual cell, or is it 2% increase where every teacher gets the same raise increase as a flat rate?
It's 2% on each cell year 1 and 2.05% on each cell year 2.
Okay.
Okay, Director Thompson.
Yeah, and so thank you. And so I shared this 2 years ago because that's what they did. That was a contract that was presented 2 years ago. And 2 years before that, they did not. I believe it was an incremental raise that was at each step, not the 2% increase. And so I want to acknowledge this because we've got newer teachers that are in the BA category, step 1, or I think they start step 2 or 3. And while their entry level is about $53,000, they're getting a 2% increase on that. And an individual who is on the highest step as a teacher, making $97,472, are getting a 2% increase on that number. So there's a large discrepancy, I feel, that our younger and newer teachers, or let me rephrase that, our newer teachers are getting versus the top end of our staff. And so again, this is the second time we're doing this, and it just widens the gap in my mind on how are we as a district making sure that we can scale for growth and bringing in the talent. We've got, like, there could be a teacher who's got a bachelor's degree, step 10, making $59,401. Like 10 years of being a teacher at our school district, and that's what they get. That's what they make, and that's not as favorable as one would hope after 10 years of working in this field. Now you got to go get a master's degree. You got to get continuing education credits. I get that. Getting a master's degree is also going back to school. College cost is more expensive. I'm not aligned with this 2% at each individual cell versus a third grade teacher is putting the exact same amount of work as another third grade teacher throughout the course of the year, but yet their raises are just aligned to their individual salary dollar value again. So that's one thing that I'm not a huge aligned with. The second thing that I see is that the current contract states that we're going to cover 60% of the health insurance premium increase for this upcoming school year, and then 50% the following year of any health insurance premium increase. And then as it sits, we always pay 50% in the premium increases. And so as healthcare continues to rise, that is a financial obligation that we need to be mindful of as we plan our financial forecast and where the dollars are going to go. And then the third thing that I want to say is, like, we also pay, as a tax-paying community, $50,000 towards the EML president. Like, that's our taxpayer dollars pays for that in this contract. And so I am not acknowledged. I want to make sure I acknowledge that role is not that role isn't needed. It is, but should the district taxpayers pay for that? And I don't know. So those are just a few things that I want to highlight out on this. And then the last thing, I apologize. And the last thing I want to highlight, as we shared before, like we are maxed out. There's a set dollar amount that we have available. We've allocated all of it. We have no more money to give. We have no more money to save. We have, and the positive news is that we have 8.3% projected in our savings account, which is good, but like however much we have available, that's where we are at, and that's where we've allocated it to. And so I want to make sure that we're protecting our staff, and those that might be in their 10 years and may not have gotten their master's. But I also understand there are folks that have been here for 20 years, and there are no more steps for them to get. And so how do they make sure that the cost of living, stays in line with them as well? So I don't have a good answer, but what I do know, and I just think that we've got to think of other pathways and be more creative as we move forward in the agreements, and so that we spend our money as effectively as we can. So
I think I'll just add, I appreciate your perspective, Director Thompson. I think through our closed sessions, we discussed all of those issues at length, including your opinion. As Director Albrecht said, the consensus of the board was in supporting what the TA was presented. So while I respect your opinion, I want to be clear that the consensus of the board in closed session was supporting the contract as approved by EML. I think what's important as we think about negotiations from my perspective, and Matt and I were at almost all of the sessions, is that we want to do the best we can for our employees given the parameters that we're in. I think everyone up here feels that way. I know you do as well. And given our parameters, we need to make sure that we are competitive in the market. So we cannot have a settlement that is way under our peers. We also can't do one that's way over our peers because we can't afford that, right? And so I am happy that this settlement seems to be in alignment with more or less the average of what our peer districts are settling at. And that I think is very important as we think about attracting teachers, retaining teachers, and being a competitive market for I mean, we have to, even though it's public education and it's very like kumbaya, right? We have to, we're competing against our peers to get students, to get staff, and we need to be competitive, with salaries and with our contract. And I think we did the best we can given the parameters that we have for this settlement.
Right.
Director Swanson.
Yeah, thank you, Amber. Yeah, I support the contract and the agreement that was reached. As Amber noted, we attended most of the negotiations, and which was a great experience, being able to meet everyone on the leadership team for the union. It was all very cordial. Coming onto the board and having seen the last negotiation process, I wasn't sure what to expect. So yeah, so it was very cordial, not exactly what I expected based on an outsider's perspective or viewpoint. But I do want to note, I mean, we're looking at a 2% increase to the matrix not to pay, and 2.05% the second year. Total contract price, 8.19% is the increase over 2 years, which Chair Cameron said is close to alignment with a lot of other districts. And really, this board, and I want the public to know and the teachers to know, approached the district and said, well, let's give them our best offer right out of the gate. We don't want to try to make money off the teachers. Let us know what we can afford to offer the teachers in the contract, and that's what we did from a financial perspective. It was a 7% offer right out of the gate back in, I believe it was August, which would have been a 2-and-2 offer essentially, depending on how you move the money around. Today we're at 8.19% because really what happened is we found out there were additional costs that the district was going to incur, essentially additional $1 million for the insurance provisions. And then there was some negotiation which got us that additional 0.19%. So essentially, we're at very close to our initial offer to the district. If it would have been accepted, even if we would have been offered 7.19, we probably would have all agreed to it back in August. The additional expenses on the insurance side, which were unforeseen at that time, if we would have settled, we would have eaten those costs as a district anyways. So while it might be 8.19%, it's really the deal that we were offering, or very close to the deal we were offering all along. And again, I might not like that it took so long to get us here. But again, I appreciate that the district, we put a number out there and said, this is what we can afford without sacrificing other student resources. And I'm glad at the end of the day we could come to an agreement with EML and get this thing approved. So,
great. Any other comments? Director Reichenberger?
I want to thank you, and I want to thank Directors Cameron and Swanson and EML for getting us all to a point where we got to maybe. Negotiations are all about getting to maybe, and getting an agreement in place and working for our teachers. So I appreciate it. I'm sure the city of Lakeville appreciates it. The school district appreciates it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, with that, we made a motion, right? Sorry, I'm trying to spend that. Okay, thank you. All in favor of approving the tentative agreement for the EML contract 2025 to 2027, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes 6-1. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. With that, we are moving into the consent agenda items that were pulled earlier. I would like to start first making a motion to table letter F, the ELA core resource recommendation for grades 9-12. Is there a second to table this to a future meeting?
I'll second.
Seconded by Anderson. Is there discussion on this? And I'll add, I was able to touch base with Superintendent Baumann. We can delay this, correct, Director Brovold?
It's not optimal, but yes.
Okay, we'll delay it, given that we've been here for over 3 hours and no known questions have come forward from the board around this topic. And so if you have questions about this resource on English language learners, English language arts, please forward them to Superintendent Bauman with a CC to myself and Director Anderson, and we will get responses to you in advance of the vote for approval at our next board meeting, which would be the end of March. I forget the date at this point. Any other discussion on this topic? Director Thompson?
I am in favor of that, so thank you. I think for the role that we have as a board, one of our core responsibilities is to approve curriculum. And I think curriculum is something that's going to be deployed to all the grade 9 through 12, which is roughly 4,000 students, is probably something we just shouldn't put in the consent agenda. So I appreciate the table in it. We can have a discussion on it at the next meeting or whenever is appropriate. So thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of tabling this to a future meeting, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Similarly, I would like to make a motion to table items G, H, J, and O. Did I get them all? The policies that were moved earlier to a future meeting for consideration for approval. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Anderson, and then is there discussion? Director Baker.
I just have a question. When we're tabling those 4 items, does the same flow, I guess, apply where if we have questions about those to email you so that we can get those answered?
Yes, I think with any topic on an agenda, if you have questions before the meeting, to please send them in advance. I think that gives our cabinet and Superintendent Bauman an opportunity to fully research. I think a conversation, not at length tonight, but to go back to our working session on what is our goal for policy this year, and maybe the goal isn't to move through minor edits and then move to more pressing policies that either are way out of compliance or that we don't even have that are needed. I thought I heard from the work session, I believe the vice chair and the superintendent heard that the goal was to move these types of items onto the consent agenda. And so how does the board want to proceed? Because obviously we're not going to spend, if we allocate it, if we started talking about these, we'd be here till midnight, right? And so what do we want to try to accomplish in the next year around policy? And if it's just one a meeting, then it's one a meeting. But I think we have a lot more work to do than that. Yep, Director Swanson?
Yeah, and I can appreciate, I think you're trying to get a unanimous consent on some of these, and we might just never get there, right? So if the board, if a majority of the board differs with my opinion on one of these policies, you can very well just vote and get it approved, and my feelings won't be hurt, right? But I think the discussion was, we can pass. Do we want to just make minor edits, and then a board member can request for it to be placed on a future meeting agenda for further discussion and further edits? Yeah. And again, I think we did technically approve 5 policies tonight, policy changes, so there's a little progress there.
You have your hand up. Director Thompson?
Yeah, just 2 comments here. I apologize. Are we moving these out to another time, or?
That's the motion.
Okay, all right.
But my discussion was, what is our goal?
Got it,
I don't want to bring all these back again if,
Thank you. 2 comments here. So I had a chance to listen to the previous 3-hour meeting that you guys had as a working session. The intent of what I shared at the meeting prior to that was not to get parental consent to do searches or look at lockers or anything like that. The intent and what I thought I was super clear, and maybe I wasn't. It was that we need to inform parents that something occurred. If anybody searched your child for whatever reason, we get alerts for grades.
Brian, I appreciate that.
Yes.
And I don't think we're going to hash out that
No, I'm not here to
policy
hash it
tonight.
out.
But I
Yes.
think what I'm hearing you say is that what you were thinking of editing is very different from what Matt was thinking about editing. Because you were about pre-notification, and you're talking about post-notification. So clearly
Different things, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
So-
yours was pre for criminal, and mine was like, I just want to know if you're gonna search my child's locker, or if you're gonna do a person search, and so that was the intent.
So I think we
That
can
was it.
bring back these policies again for the
Yes.
second reading, right?
Yep.
But we won't do it tonight.
Okay.
I mean, if the board agrees.
Yep.
Yep. Director Thompson?
And the second thing is that one of the reasons that over the past 2 years of being on the board, we were trying to be very thoughtful of having meetings public and making votes, because working sessions can lead to indirect decisions that really warrant a vote. Like you guys shot down a board approved policy committee through a working session. No one voted. You guys all just agreed that we're going to just go do that because we voted to have that board policy committee at a board business meeting. And so again, one of the reasons that we want to be mindful of these working sessions, if we're going to make these kind of decisions, what are the rules on making those decisions? Are we voting during these working sessions? And then lastly, if we're not voting, then how do we know, and who's capturing the decisions, and who's capturing who decided to do what and yes or no during these working sessions? Like I'm not saying we can't make decisions, but if that's the direction we're gonna go, then that's one of the reasons how we got into some of the other issues when decisions were made during a working session without any accountability. And so again, the board policy committee was made during a business meeting, and you guys shot it down. Let me rephrase that. It was as a board, and it probably would have passed anyways during a regular business meeting, but we can't be are we going to be making those kind of decisions during working sessions? So that's what I heard when I listened.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, all in favor of moving or of tabling G, H, J, and O to a future meeting, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. With that, we'll move to board member reports. Does anybody have anything to report? Director Baker?
I'll make this short. I just want to thank all of the staff and all of the volunteers that were at the Sports and Activities Festival this weekend. It was really great. I know I got to spend the morning with Carly and Amber, and then Tony came after coaching a basketball game all day, so that was a long day. It was fun. It was great to see all of the community out, lots of little ones. I think we stopped at 950, didn't we?
That's
when we
great.
It got up to 1,000.
Yes, that was our goal. Like we were trying to get to 1,000. So it was just a really great event. So it's good to see that back in the district, and enjoyed volunteering.
Great, thanks. Any other updates or reports? Yeah, Director Swanson?
I attended the play Annie at Century Middle School with my family 2 Saturdays ago, and it was very well done. The set, the actors, actresses, so highly recommend it. Blew me away for a middle school production. So,
Director Carbone?
Yeah, last Thursday night, a number of it, myself and Carly and Amber and Michael and Brian attended the Chamber of Commerce Business Awards dinner, and I'm sure all of you folks did too. But we had an opportunity to talk to a lot of the business leaders about their appreciations and concerns about the educational system.
Great. Any other updates? I'll just add one other. I was able to attend and Michael, you alluded to this, to the State High School Dance Tournament over Valentine's weekend. So I was there all day, so I saw Lakeville South and Lakeville North perform twice, once in the finals. And I'll just say I grew up in a dance family. I'm not a dancer, but I grew up in the family, and a lot of people said Lakeville North should have placed. So, so for whatever that's worth, they did a fantastic job, as did Lakeville South. All right, with that, we'll move to the superintendent report.
Yeah, just 2 quick things. They were touched on already, but I do want to say thank you to board members who were able to make those 2 events. The 2 events I'm referring to are the Chamber Awards Dinner, so thank you for that. I think it's important to, as Paul alluded to, listen to what our business leaders, there's a lot of support in the business community for our schools, and I think that was on display. And then the activities and sports festival, I want to just thank all the families who came out and invite families to come out next year and see if we can get more kids involved and help our activities and our community activities as well with our students who can do some extended learning. So thank you again for doing that. In the interest of time, I'll just leave it there.
All right, great. Superintendent Bauman. All right, we're at the end of our meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
All right, first by Swanson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Reichenberger. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.